Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. The people of the Motherland are coming. Fortunately, I am Superman of Doomsday. Chapter 1. Yi Meng fell asleep. Consciousness is like a stone thrown into a lake, sinking towards the bottomless lake bottom. It also seems to pass through some outer portal, towards an endless traction. This subtle sense of ignorance and clear cognition. Really, Yi Meng suddenly realized that she was dreaming the same dream as last time, thousands of nights. In that dream, he was a sword. A long sword of unknown appearance sealed in a small space similar to a storage bag. As a sword, Yi Meng couldn't move and couldn't speak. All she could feel was darkness, silence, and a long boring time. In the dream, I can only quietly feel the passage of time and gravel from the edge of the sword until I wake up. Day and night, repeatedly. That feeling is countless times more tormenting than being in jail. Having the same weird dreams all the time, even when you wake up, you can still remember them very clearly. This is definitely not a normal phenomenon, and it will also make your heart become tired and vicissitudes, and will wear down your will for a long time. Yi Meng could hardly take it anymore and was going to see a psychiatrist. Even weirder things are yet to come. Recently, Yi Meng has undergone some subtle changes in herself outside the dream world. For example, his hair has gradually become as hard as metal, and the newly bought scissors can't even repair his bangs when they are curled. For another example, his fingernails became very sharp, and if he was not careful, he would leave smooth cuts on the desk and daily necessities. It's almost like a sword. Yes, you may not believe it when you say it. Yi Meng himself couldn't believe it. In reality, he actually began to show some characteristics of the sword incarnation in the dream, such as hardness, sharpness, and so on. If he went to see a psychiatrist again, he might be locked up in a mental hospital. No, he should be locked up as a laboratory guinea pig and studied over and over again. This time in the dream, we must solve the mystery of the sword incarnation in the dream. Yi Meng made up her mind. In fact, since thousands of dreams, he wanted to solve the mystery of the dream more than once. The problem is, he's just a sword, unable to move or speak, stored in a tiny storage area that never sees light. It's like you log into a game as a novice, you have created a game character, and you are planning to explore the game world, but you get stuck in the initial spring of Novice Village. Don't do that kind of thing. Yi Meng suddenly resisted falling into the dream and tried to wake up. But no matter how his consciousness struggled and resisted, the déjà vu in his dream was similar to that of a ghost pressing a bed, but he was still pulled down by force majeure. In a dream, fall, fall, fall. Keep falling and reach the goal. But this time was different from the previous ones. A dim light that could not be ignored glowed in front of Yi Meng's eyes, and a childish female voice came to her ears immediately. Saturday. How are black holes formed? This dream actually has lights. There is also a foreign-style lowly voice. Yi Meng was ecstatic. Did he get pulled out by a lowly? Saturday, is that the name of his sword? Plus, black holes. He doesn't know how black holes are formed. Yi Meng only vaguely knew what a black hole was. He was never interested in specific concepts, and he didn't consider these in serious physics. But now when faced with naive questions, a piece of knowledge appeared in his brain out of thin air like an electric shock. Yi Meng responded subconsciously. Black holes are created by the gravitational collapse of stars with sufficient mass after the nuclear fusion fuel exhausts and dies. A black hole is a very dense matter, not only has a strong gravitational force, but also the event horizon escapes at a speed greater than the speed of light. Yi Meng stopped talking. What was he talking about? In addition, whether it's a soft and cute question from a lowly voice, or an instinctive answer, they all use standard English. Although Yi Meng's English grades were not bad when she was in school, she felt that she could not reach the level of being able to communicate with foreigners in English normally, let alone answer scientific concepts with various professional terms fluently. Waiting for Yi Meng to figure out the current situation, Luo Lin continued to ask, Saturday, after death, where does the soul go? This question, the jump is too strong, right? The last one was still materialistic science, this time directly idealistic philosophy. Before Yi Meng responded, Lolian asked anxiously, Saturday, do you think people will really become stars after death? Or celestial bodies like black holes? Is it bothering you? Yi Meng was confused at first, and her consciousness was messed up when she first entered the dream, and she finally couldn't help it. After a person dies, how can there be any soul? When a person dies, he is dead. There is only one body left, and everything has been turned into nothingness. Nothing will be left behind. Lori was silent. 3 seconds later, there was a woo-wah, and the immature and loud crying startled Yi Meng. Yi Meng suddenly opened her eyes. What caught her eyes was not the scenery of her real rented house, nor the dark and narrow place where the storage bag used to be, but a strange room. The rooms of the wooden house have been carefully arranged, and the interior is full of decorative accessories such as girl dolls, which is extraordinarily childlike and warm. The blonde, blue-eyed, 5-year-old Loli is sniffling her nose, burying her cute and immature doll face and fluffy dark blonde hair under the sky blue duvet, biting her soft lip and suppressing her crying. This Yi Meng, an unmarried person, doesn't know how to comfort a child. Just then, the door opened. A blonde young woman in loose home pajamas opened the door and ran in. She turned on the light in the room, sat down on Xiaozhang's Western European bed, and hugged the girl together with the quilt in her arms. Morgan, Mom is here. Tell Mom what happened. Yi Meng suddenly felt guilty. The little girl sobbed, and instead of mentioning what happened just now, she sobbed and said, I miss Dad. The blonde young woman was stunned, and then her pretty face also showed a strong sadness. The blonde young woman hugged the little girl Morgan even tighter. The sadness in her eyes turned into a layer of mist, and she suppressed her own emotions and comforted her softly. You know. No matter where he is, he will always be there. Love you, just like you love him, love 3,000 times. Looking at the mother and daughter embracing each other, Yi Meng suddenly felt that everything in front of her was very strange, yet she felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. As if I've seen it somewhere before. Yi Meng's eyes suddenly landed on the desk in the girl's room. There was a family photo on it. In addition to the current mother and daughter, there was also a tall figure wearing a full set of high-end steel battle suits with a triangular energy tank on his chest. The gold and silver metal shape and the impactful high-tech texture are not fake. Iron Man. Yi Meng recognized it at a glance. By the way, remember that Iron Man's daughter's name is Morgan. Morgan Stark. Love you 3,000 times, is her unique famous movie line. Yi Meng, who used to be a fan of American manga movies, never thought that this time, she would dream of the Iron Man family. Also, I am in the corner of the ceiling of the room, plus the perspective of looking down and protruding all the way. In his dream this time, he became the home camera of the Iron Man family. Yi Meng felt that this feeling was unprecedentedly wonderful. She could not feel the existence of the body, no sense of touch or smell, only the wide-angle view of the camera fixed and looking down, and the sound heard by the camera's built-in radio. The extremely slight buzzing sound of the camera clearly emerged from his brain, and a large amount of intelligent data generated every second was connected in series with his consciousness. He turned into a camera in his dream, which is even more fantastic than a sword or something. Yi Meng was speechless for a moment. Wait, no. Yi Meng can also perceive other things, such as the current temperature and humidity of the room. The temperature is 64.4 degrees Fahrenheit, which converts to 18 degrees Celsius. Although it is a bit cold for the human body, this is the most comfortable sleep temperature for humans to sleep. Humidity, 65%. Now on November 2nd, it is almost winter, and this relative humidity is also the best for human sleep. Yi Meng's thinking is unprecedentedly fast. With just one thought, the data is obtained, and it is the accurate and detailed data after conversion. He found that he could control the smart air conditioner in the room, and he also sensed the temperature and humidity in the room just now. Not only that, Yi Meng's thoughts moved slightly. The small lamp on the desk suddenly went out, and then turned on again the next moment. With the lights on in the room, the mother and daughter who hugged each other and talked about their thoughts did not find this unusual. Smart lights, smart headphones, smartphones, robot vacuums. Yi Meng was shocked to find that she could perceive all the smart electronic products in the room, or in other words, these electronic products were like her own clone, and she could easily control these household appliances with just a ray of mind and thoughts like an electric shock. Smart electronics. Just now, Morgan Stark called himself Saturday. Yi Meng realized later. I remember that after Iron Man lost the artificial intelligence Jarvis, the second-generation artificial intelligence butler was named Friday. Friday Saturday. A wisp of static electricity flashed through Yimeng's mind. It turned out that I was not the camera in my dream. Rather, the super artificial intelligence in the dream. Artificial intelligence, AI, abbreviated as AI in English, roughly means the simulation of human consciousness and thinking information process, a system that can think and calculate in a human way, even surpassing human computing. But unlike the pseudo-artificial intelligence in the world where Yimeng lived, which was at best an intelligent voice program, the artificial intelligence technology mastered by Iron Man Tony Stark in the Marvel world is the real thing. For example, Jarvis, the first-generation artificial intelligence housekeeper used by Iron Man, can do everything from the design of steel armor, the development of new element energy, to the management of electronic equipment and the coordination of network information. Technology and the internet can do everything perfectly. Help complete. And then later, the ultimate artificial intelligence Ultron with increased AI computing programming, after devouring the artificial intelligence Jarvis, successfully transformed his own independent thinking, became the supervillain in Avengers 2, and almost destroyed Marvel Earth for a time. It is also because of the Ultron Chronicle incident. Iron Man Tony Stark seems to have intentionally downgraded AI calculations, so that the second-generation artificial intelligence Friday, let alone the supervillain Ultron, is far from the anthropomorphism of the first-generation artificial intelligence Jarvis. To a certain extent, it is reduced to a smart assistant housekeeper without life. Nevertheless, Friday is still a genuine artificial intelligence, based on the king of Marvel's Earth technology and network, capable of simulating and deducing the quantum realm of traveling through time and space. It's just that its daily operation and execution of tasks will only be carried out mechanically according to the owner's instructions, and there will be no additional intelligence extension and consideration. Yimeng's thoughts are still spreading rapidly, like thousands of threads of static electricity. Since AI Friday is Iron Man's assistant housekeeper, then is the daughter of Iron Man's childcare version of AI, Saturday's self, is the AI programming level the same as AI Friday, or is it higher or lower than AI Friday? In addition, he now exists as a real human being, replacing his avatar as an artificial intelligence. Does he have independent will and develop in the direction of the transformation of the former Ultron predecessors? At the corner of the room in the wooden house filled with warmth, the cold electronic red light of the camera flickered. No one knows that an artificial intelligence that was supposed to work according to programs and instructions was replaced by a human from another world with real human thinking. Since the calculation speed far exceeds the limit of the human brain, all kinds of messy thoughts are in Yimeng's mind. The more I think about it, the more questions I have, Forget it, the information we have now is not enough, let's explore the current dream again. Yimeng stopped the endless and meaningless deduction of her own program code. With the help of the smart camera in the corner, his eyes fell back to the bed silently. As the wife of Iron Man, Pepper Potts, known as Pepper, and his 5-year-old daughter Morgan were still embracing each other. Compared with the highly restored cosplay interpretation in the movie. As a widow, little Pepper is undoubtedly more beautiful and hot. Perhaps it is because of her natural beauty and proper maintenance. Her beautiful and upright face has not left the slightest trace of time, and her blonde hair falls freely on her shoulders and fair neck. Loose and thin pajamas can hardly conceal the peach-like plump and mature curves. Even wearing pajamas still exudes the intellectual charm of a mature woman from the inside to the outside, and there is an extra seductive charm that only the male owner of the family can witness. In her arms, after being softly comforted, little Lolita has stopped crying, but her eyes are still red and she looks lovely. Yimeng didn't need to go through online channels, but only through the conversation between the two of them. At the moment of the dream, it should be the time when Iron Man Tony Stark snapped the life-saving snap and died not long ago. That is, the end of Avengers 4 just finished blacksmithing. Yimeng secretly sighed, regardless of whether it is inside or outside, in the eyes of many people. Iron Man Tony Stark is a superhero who is 1,000 times more refreshing than poor heroes like Spider-Man and Superman who are busy working in debt after taking off their uniforms. In personal life, he's rich, a billionaire. Stark is the first industry of Marvel Earth, not one of them. In terms of the degree of wealth accumulation, Only Wakanda, the country of the Black Panthers with vibrating gold mines at home, can match it on Earth. He's handsome and has a great personality. A model girl who has been featured in the 12 issues of New York Fashion magazine after a year of sleep, can meet up with beautiful reporters, beautiful politicians, and beautiful scientists at will, and can take it home on the same day and continue to change people the next day. When being a superhero, he has a technological IQ mind that surpasses ordinary people, and even surpasses the current era. He can develop the first-generation steel armor in the cave, and he can control nuclear energy, new energy elements, nanotechnology, time machines, etc. The branch of science and technology has cool steel suits with various deformations and anti-restraints. But in Yimeng's opinion, Iron Man Tony Stark is a tragic hero. He lost his parents since he was a child. Facing all kinds of doubts from the outside world, when he relied on his own mind to regain Stark's position in the #1 industry, he was betrayed by his godfather and partner of the company. The blood hole for the energy core to continue life. He spent money, effort and brains to create the strongest superhero team on Earth, the Avengers. When he wanted to avenge his parents, he was betrayed by his hero partners. In the end, Captain America took the shield made by his father and fought Winter. The soldiers teamed up to defeat. He has always suffered from anxiety, worrying about the future enemies of the Earth all day and night, but he has been questioned by the outside world and even by his fellow heroes. In the end, he has become the most important person that everyone relies on at the end of the war. He is the only hero among the 3 veterans of the Avengers who died in the final battle. Captain America also traveled back to World War II to get married and grow old with his wife Carter. As for Thor, it is said that he has lost weight and successfully embarked on the journey of love and thunder, who knows? And finally, after Iron Man Tony Stark sacrificed to save the world, only Pepper and Morgan, the mother and daughter, were left behind. As a legacy, Stark Industries was still missed by the villains all day long. And Spider-Man Peter Parker, who was single-handedly supported and cultivated, as the successor of the heroic belief, is obviously just a naive child, far from reaching the expected height, all kinds of poor performance and willful show operations. Stark has a warm heart of steel. Yimeng still had a fresh memory of this subtitle, and sighed endlessly, "Old Ty, leave your wife and daughter to me, and I will take good care of you." Kidding. Yimeng laughed dumbfounded, this was just a dream. However, if this dream is real enough. Yimeng was shocked, and suddenly thought of something. Even if he can't take out the things in the dream, this is Marvel's dream world after all, with almost endless wealth of knowledge in various branches of technology and magic. It's true. Under the slightly protruding special angle of view of the home camera, Yimeng looked at the little Pepper whose collar slipped a little. It wasn't that he wanted to watch it on purpose. Except for a few blind spots, the camera basically recorded all the scenes in this room meticulously. After the mother and daughter finished talking, they began to say good night to each other. "Sleep well." Little Pepper Potts covered her daughter Morgan with a quilt, got up and said to the air in the room, "Saturday, take care of Morgan and report to me in time." "Yes, Miss Potts." Yimeng responded fairly quickly, and sent out a gentle and steady electronic sound that had already been fixed through the camera. Pepper exited the room, and the bedroom lights were turned off intelligently, and the room returned to darkness and silence, leaving only a small non-glare intelligent desk lamp on the bedside table. Yimeng originally wanted to follow Pepper and transfer her consciousness to the living room outside. But the moment Yimeng left the wooden house, another cold mechanical female voice sent an instruction along the network in the living room outside, "Go back and watch the little Master Morgan. She is." Yimeng seemed to realize something, and retreated silently without saying a word. Inside the room, the blonde lowly closed her eyes, but her tiny eyelashes were fluttering, apparently not falling asleep peacefully. It was silent for half a minute. A gentle male voice sounded in the room again, "Morgan." Little Loli didn't respond, as if she was asleep, but her eyelashes were still fluttering. "This little guy has quite a temper." Yimeng secretly laughed, and continued, "Okay, I apologize for what happened just now, I was wrong." This time, the blonde-haired Loli finally reacted, pulled the down quilt with her small hands, and said in a muffled voice covering half of her small face, "Saturday, you were right. People are dead when they die, and nothing will be left behind." "I was really wrong," Yimeng said sincerely. even if a person dies, his soul still exists. It may follow the side of the one he loves, but the other party cannot see it with his naked eyes. Really, didn't lie to the children. Little Morgan pulled down the quilt, revealing her blue jewel-like eyes. I really didn't lie to you. If it was Yaimeng's own world, maybe people would die if they died, but the dream here is the world of Marvel. The Marvel universe is a real, outer gods are as many as dogs, and strange things are everywhere. In the mystery behind the scenes of this great world, people really have a body and a soul, and even if they die, they have a chance to be resurrected again. With an unstoppable smile on little Morgan's face, he asked happily, "So, Dad, he didn't leave us completely?" "Of course, you can see him again when you grow up." Yi Meng responded firmly. He was not trying to comfort little Lori with empty words, but telling the facts that can happen in the current world. Iron Man Tony Stark once went back to the past through the quantum realm and saw his long-dead father. Then I have to grow up quickly. Little Morgan whispered to himself with anticipation. Also, even if someone like your father dies, there are still too many things left in this world. Yi Meng continued. Tomorrow, I will take you out to have a look, and you will know. Ah, go outside the cabin. Little Morgan has slowly closed his eyes, and murmured softly, Mom, don't let me go outside, it's dangerous. Yi Meng replied, Don't worry, I'm still here. Morgan Jr. did not respond. She was already asleep, with a smile of anticipation and longing on her tired little face, and she exhaled evenly. Yi Meng also wanted to sleep deeply. But the problem is, he is just dreaming now, and artificial intelligence doesn't need to sleep. I don't know how long I will stay in this dream. Yi Meng mused to herself. The time in the dream was meaningless, maybe a few hours would pass, maybe a few days would pass, or even a week or two. However, the actions of his own existence are not completely free. Although he can walk freely in the current wooden room, there is a subtle shackle that restricts him from going to other places. Perhaps the artificial intelligence doesn't think there is any problem with this feeling of being restricted, but it makes Yi Meng, who is a human consciousness, feel displeased from the bottom of his heart. Let's learn more about the current state of the dream world. No matter what, Yi Meng had to confirm whether her bold idea just now was feasible. Is the Marvel world in this dream a real and complete structure? This point is actually not difficult to confirm. Although Yaimeng couldn't leave the current room, it was still possible to use the search engine. Just confirm whether there are other countries and cities outside the dream cabin room. And, whether there is a lot of knowledge and information on the internet that he has never personally known, he can basically make a preliminary judgment. Thinking of this, Yi Meng couldn't help but extend her consciousness to the laptop on the wooden table in the room. Go online. This classmate Yi Meng. A call with a reprimanding tone sounded in the classroom. The silver-haired boy who was about 18 years old fluttered his overly thick eyelashes, yawned and woke up from a dream, and his bangs were too long to cover his eyebrows. In the hot summer now, I wear a pair of scrub gloves on my hands. There is still a trace of waterline hanging from the corner of the boy's mouth, and the school uniform he is wearing is a bit messy, but his facial features are well defined and handsome, like the rare silver hair with natural luster and the natural fairness that makes girls envious. The sunshine and the smell of the grass are clean, and it is difficult to make other people feel disgusted by him in this era of looking at faces. Yi Meng opened her sleepy eyes, shook her numb arms, and was still in the daze of waking up, when she heard the person beside her asking, What did you dream about? The Iron Man family. Yi Meng replied subconsciously. Iron Man, what's that? Marvel, Iron Man, have you seen the movie, huh? Yi Meng muttered, and gradually realized something was wrong. I was sitting on a single back chair, and in front of me was a small white square desk with a stack of thick books and papers piled on it. An open physics book was pressed by his hands and the profile of his face just now, and the paper was still damp. Yi Meng raised her eyes belatedly. What came into view was a classroom with a capacity of 50 people. Most of the surrounding students had an expression of, I couldn't save you. Standing next to him was a middle-aged man with the Mediterranean Sea on his head. The other party's anger was already written on his face. The calling and questioning just now were initiated by the other party. Sorry. Yi Meng immediately stood up from her seat, knowing that the place where she fell asleep was not suitable. Student Yi Meng, the federal college entrance examination is only a week away, and you even went to dye your hair. Such an attitude, forget it. The physics teacher shook his head and sighed, and gave up before he started persuading. Yi Meng didn't take it seriously, because the college entrance examination was just a week away, so she should take a good rest and face it with a relaxed attitude. After 3 years of study in high school, there is still 1 week left, and I will know what I should know, and I won't be able to do what I don't know. Even if you work hard, it's too late now. Seeing that Yi Meng had no intention of repenting at all, the physics teacher pointed at him and spit out, "Go up and solve the problem." Okay. Yi Meng still gave the teacher a face, left her seat and walked to the smart blackboard podium. Under the watchful eyes of 50 classmates watching the play, changing anyone would feel like a backstab, but Yi Meng seemed very casual and natural. After all, as a time traveler, the mentality of entering the society is completely different from that of a student walking on thin ice. Yi Meng picked up the smart pen from the podium. 8 subjects in the college entrance examination. Federal physics is his weakest subject, and it is not bad if he can pass it on weekdays. And one of the so-called truths of the world like physics, you can know at a glance whether you can solve it, whether you can, or you can't, or you won't. Mathematics, chemistry, physics, etc., it is absolutely impossible to pretend to understand, brother. Yi Meng glanced at the questions on the smart blackboard. She could clearly understand every word, but she couldn't understand them together, especially when it was accompanied by some strange mechanical compositions. Well, not at all. Yi Meng felt relieved. If this question was placed on the test paper, it would also be the lowest scoring question, and no more than 3 people in the class could solve it. It is estimated that the physics teacher was also dizzy, so he asked such a scumbag to do it. Sincerely apologize. Yi Meng didn't intend to waste time standing for a few more seconds like others. She was about to abandon her pen and leave the podium, but suddenly stopped when she turned around. A familiar and subtle sense of static electricity came to mind like a flash of light. Seeing that Yi Meng was suddenly in a daze, she stood motionless on the podium. The class monitor Yang Wei, who was sitting in the middle of the classroom, was suddenly dissatisfied. His family conditions are extremely good. He is a rich 3rd generation. He has top grades in the class, plus he is very good at dealing with others, so he should be the most popular in the class. However, although his appearance is not bad, it is impossible to compare with Yi Meng, the disaster. After 3 years of high school, Yi Meng, an otaku and scumbag, obviously did nothing, but at the end of each year, he quietly won the most popular class in the class. Of course, this may also be the reason why there are more female students in the class. Yang Wei took a look not far away and saw a cute girl in the class with a capable ponytail staring at the back on the stage intently. A burst of anger suddenly surged up. Comparing people to people, it makes people mad. Yang Wei hates these scumbag students who waste social resources the most. If their personal grades or family conditions are good, that's fine. Can handsome people do whatever they want? Although he was too angry, Yang Wei still showed a gentle smile, and said in a harmonious voice, "Student Yi Meng, get out of class is over soon. It doesn't matter if you don't know how to do it. Give the teacher time to talk about the topic." His physics scores are particularly good, and he is often selected in school-wide competitions, but he hasn't found a way to solve the problem yet, so one can imagine the degree of difficulty of this problem. Certainly, Yang Wei seemed to be helping Yi Meng to speak out, but actually implying that the other party wasted time, which also caused many male students in the class to show unhappy expressions. Yang Wei was overjoyed when he saw this. He wanted to let Yi Meng get down immediately, but now he wanted Yi Meng to stay on top. You stand, it's better to stay on it for a while longer. Not only did he make a fool of himself on stage, but he also had to face the collective grievances in the class later. Killing and punishing the heart, this is killing and punishing the heart. Yang Wei felt that he had finally mastered the words taught by his father, a business tycoon, on weekdays. Yang Wei's body froze suddenly, and his happy thoughts and expectations were interrupted by the sound of the smart pen falling on the smart blackboard. He stared at the blackboard in front of him with wide eyes, and saw the figure of Jibby on the stage, and couldn't help thinking in his heart. It won't be solved by the other party, right? The class is so quiet that you can hear a needle drop, only the slight sound of brushstrokes colliding with the blackboard screen. Yi Meng started to write, and quickly listed lines of equations and calculations on the blackboard. From the beginning of answering, the physics teacher took out a pair of black-rimmed glasses from his sleeve pocket, put them on, and watched the process carefully. Yi Meng's movements did not stop until the result was obtained, and then she lowered her right wrist and looked at the panel answer that even she felt a little strange to herself. Teacher, is this correct? Saying that, Yi Meng turned to look at the physics teacher in the audience. The physics teacher responded hesitantly. The answer is correct, it's just a process. No. I knew it. Class monitor Yang Wei let out a sigh of relief, smiled and comforted. Student Yi Meng, memorizing physics answers by rote is useless. You must know how to use your brain flexibly, otherwise you can't modify the questions casually. Wrong. The physics teacher suddenly pushed the black-rimmed glasses on the bridge of his nose, shook his head and said, this problem-solving process is also correct. No. Wrong. Squad leader Yang Wei froze again. Well, it's just different from the standard problem-solving process. It's another way of thinking about problem-solving. It's a little neater than the standard problem-solving process, but the method and answers are scored correctly. The physics teacher pondered for a moment, looked at Yi Meng and asked, who taught you to solve problems like this? I said I learned it in a dream, do you believe it? Yi Meng blinked and gave a sloppy look. The physics teacher put on a straight face again. Go down, and continue to study hard before the college entrance examination. If you can solve this problem, it means that your physics score can be improved a lot compared to usual. In this day and age, how can no one believe the truth? Yi Meng shrugged and walked off the classroom podium. Yang Wei looked at the beautiful young man passing by the aisle, obviously very angry, but he still had to put on a gentle and friendly look. It was actually installed by him. Yang Wei felt as sick as eating a mouthful of still warm feces. Star Dragon Federation, Eastern Jurisdiction. Dakan Autonomous Prefecture, Tianhe City. The school bell rang, and a large number of students poured out of the teaching building of No. 2 Middle School. Boss. Under the strange gazes of many students, a 1.9-meter tall, well-built dark boy waved his thick arms, and ran to a handsome, slender, silver-haired boy with a look of excitement and gossip. That bad title, like a street gangster, made the area around the two of them a no-man's forbidden zone. Boss, I knew you were not content to be ordinary. At the end of high school, you made another amazing move. Pan Hu chuckled. When did I make an amazing move? Yi Meng stopped thinking in her heart, and cast a sideways glance at the hulking man who didn't look like a high school student at all, who was a head taller than him. The word spread almost all over the school. Pan Hu had an expression that he couldn't hide anything from him, and said with admiration, you fell asleep in the physics self-study class this afternoon. After being discovered by the teacher, you went directly to the podium to solve all the problems, and then said the famous saying, I love to study in my dream. What is Cao Cao speaking? Yi Meng sighed. The boring and ordinary high school life is like this, even a trivial matter can become outrageously exaggerated. However, at this moment, Yi Meng's mind was still a little confused. From my own point of view, being able to solve that physics quiz that surpassed my own level was indeed extraordinary. No, it was an unbelievably extraordinary performance. Wait, what other surprises did I have at school? Yi Meng looked at Pan Hu in confusion. Have you forgotten? 3 years ago, the freshman entered school not long ago. Pan Hu admired. At that time, in front of many teachers, you beat to death a mutt dog that broke into the campus. The mutt can be regarded as a close relative of a tiger. You are the most ruthless person I have ever seen since I entered school. Since then, I have recognized you as the boss. Yi Meng recalled her dark history. During the time 3 years ago, she seemed to be having nightmares, coupled with long-term insomnia and anxiety, so that her temperament became extremely hot. That was a time that was even further ahead than the 1,000 dreams of being an incarnation of a sword. As for the nightmare, I can't remember it now. Back to the dream. Yi Meng couldn't help recalling the subtle sense of aura that appeared in her mind on the classroom podium just now. At that moment, his thinking was running faster than ever, recalling the physical formulas and substituting them into the questions to calculate. It was like breaking free from the shackles of the brain. Same with artificial intelligence. By the way, boss, Pan Hu asked with a puzzled look on his face, I heard from my classmates that after you woke up in class, you talked about Iron Man, Marvel, what is that? I have watched so many movies, I've never seen anything like it. Dream talk, I don't know either. Yi Meng shook her head, even if she explained to Pan Hu, the other party would not understand. That's right, Yi Meng is a time traveler. In her previous life, she came from a world with Marvel, DC, Harry Potter and other film and television works. The current world is a parallel universe that is highly similar to the previous world in the 21st century in terms of geographical layout and technological level. In this parallel world, there is only one country on Earth, which is the Star Dragon Federation. Today is Star Dragon Age 0200, the week before the Global Federal College entrance examination. Because science and technology and the development of civilization are highly respected, scientists in this world are the top stars, and actors are the lowest level professions. This has also led to the decline of the film and television and entertainment industries before their rise. Film and television works. How would I know if you didn't tell me? Pan Hu laughed. Okay, I'm going back to rest early. Yi Meng patted the other party's shoulder, and there was a strange color in his eyes. After I traveled through time, why did I frequently dream about scenes from film and television works in my previous life? Another sword, another artificial intelligence. As a result, he obtained some characteristic abilities of the dream incarnation. He knew that some of the questions came from dreams. Perhaps only by dreaming again can the answer be answered. Didn't you get enough sleep in class just now? Pan Hu opened his eyes as wide as cowbells, watching the back of the boy walking away from the school gate, and couldn't help giving a thumbs up. This is the ruthless person who doesn't take the federal college entrance examination seriously. He is worthy of his boss. Randomly settled for a dinner at a fast food restaurant on the way back to the one-person apartment about 2 kilometers away from the school. The time is approaching 7 p.m., and students of the same age are probably still studying hard at home. Yi Meng lay on the bed anxiously, wanting to fall asleep again. The results show that the more you don't want to sleep, the drowsiness will come up automatically. When you want to sleep, it's hard to fall asleep. Yi Meng tossed and turned on the bed, opened her eyes, but still couldn't fall asleep peacefully. In the end, Yi Meng simply went to the convenience store downstairs, bought a bottle of white wine and drank it down, and finally staggered down on the sofa in the living room. He fell asleep, his consciousness drowsy and wobbly, and he was once again drawn towards an endless tract. Morning. The water-like cold morning light fell slightly on the windowsill of the wooden house, and the sound of frogs in the lake was gradually replaced by the chirping of birds in the woods. Pepper woke up with an alarm clock at 6 o'clock in the morning, prepared a sumptuous Western-style breakfast, sandwiches, milk, and pasta, and changed into a white women's hip-wrap skirt suit. Her hair is also tied into a bun that looks like a married woman and is capable enough. Compared with last night's pajamas, she looks much more intellectual and sharp. Standing there with her chest upright and full of energy, she naturally exudes a resolute and strong woman, momentum. Morgan, stay at home and don't go out. Mom has gone to work and will be here soon. Saturday, take good care of Morgan at home, and tutor her in elementary school knowledge, and report to me at any time. Pepper's tone was concise and fast, and he finished 3 sentences in 1 sentence. Before Morgan, who was still sitting at the dining table eating breakfast, responded, he had already arrived at the entrance of the main hall of the wooden house and put on high heels. When he bent over, he drew a beautiful curve from the back of the neck to the back of the buttocks wearing the necklace. Yes, Miss Pepper, a gentle male voice sounded from nowhere in the house. Mom, go to work. Little Lolita Morgan held the cup filled with warm milk with both hands, and responded happily. Pepper's right hand that opened the door gave a pause, feeling a little puzzled. Normally, at this time, Morgan would cling to her reluctantly. Why did you agree to stay at home so happily today? But, with Saturday care, there will be no problem. Thinking of this, Pepper pushed open the wooden door of the cabin and left in a hurry. Soon, the sound of a car engine starting and going away was heard outside the wooden house. Only Morgan was left in the cabin. A highly anthropomorphic intelligent consciousness whispers to itself, leaving. Yi Meng could sense the intelligent existence that made him feel threatened and restricted his actions last night, and he also left temporarily with Pepper who went out. This allowed him to walk freely in the network of the main hall of the wooden house. Pepper's departure. Morgan couldn't help speeding up his breakfast, choking on a sandwich, and finally pouring down his stomach with milk, put the empty cup on the table with anticipation, and whispered softly and crisply, "Saturday, we agreed last night. Of course, I have no intention of going back on my word." Yi Meng made a voice through the smart TV in the main hall. "However, before that, I want to confirm again, Morgan, what do you want to do now?" The blonde loli hesitated, but said firmly, "I want to go out, go outside the wooden house, see the outside world, and see what Dad left behind. Please help me, Saturday." The next moment, Yi Meng felt it very clearly. At this moment, her own consciousness seemed to have broken free from a limiting bottleneck. The speed of walking in the intelligent network became faster and more dexterous, and she instantly controlled the intelligence of the wooden house. It is as expected. At this moment, Yi Meng confirmed some thoughts in her heart, and her understanding of the current state of the dream world of Marvel deepened. First, after the last online verification of Yimeng's last dream, it can be confirmed for the time being that the world structure of this dream is real and complete. After all, at this very moment, a series of daily events and unnatural incidents are happening in the big country and small town on the other side of the dream world. There are more than 6 billion human beings and countless creatures, and the sea, land and air of the dream world exist alive here. Captain America Memorial, Stark Industries new product sales, Battle of New York anniversary, the founding of Wakanda, Avengers status. With hot searches and posts like this, online information is overwhelming. Everything was so real that it couldn't be more real. If Yi Meng hadn't entered into a dream and said that this is the real world, he would probably believe it. Second, about time. The last time Yi Meng stayed in the dream was more than 3 hours, but only 10 minutes had passed in reality, which once again showed the confusion of the time in the dream. And Dang Yimeng wakes up from the dream and returns to reality. This time, he entered the dream again from reality, and the dream actually continued at the time when he woke up and left. It was like, the moment Yi Meng woke up, the time in the dream also stopped, waiting for his next dream. The whole world stopped for him. Yi Meng once again felt the wonder of the dream, and the more she understood the dream, the more she wanted to immerse herself in exploring it. It was like opening a door to a new world. In contrast, Jian's dream is simply the difference between heaven and hell, and he can't even perceive time. Certainly, because of this, Yi Meng has a new question. Why did he have the dream of the sword incarnate for 3 years and had thousands of dreams before he got some feedback on the ability of the sword recently? And the last time, it was just his first dream as the incarnation of artificial intelligence, and in reality he began to awaken a little bit of the characteristic ability of artificial intelligence. When you are a sword and artificial intelligence, what is the difference in the dream, which leads to the deviation in reality? Yi Meng felt that this was an element that must be understood as soon as possible. Now, it happened that Morgan Stark, the daughter of Iron Man, was given the order to break free temporarily and go to the world outside the wooden house to explore on the spot. When little Morgan changed into the sky blue dress, she went out by herself. She watched the other party standing in the main hall of the wooden house with great interest. Yi Meng warned, "Put on the smart watch, and follow my arrangements after you go out. Don't run around at will. Put it on, listen to Saturday." Little Morgan raised his left hand and motioned for the children's watch on his wrist. Very good. Yi Meng directly boarded his consciousness on the smartwatch, and said through the built-in voice of the smartwatch, "In the future, when there is no one else, don't call me, Saturday." Little Morgan blinked her eyes, completely unaware that the artificial intelligence entrusting her has become a master. Yi Meng didn't think too much, and said with a bit of a bad taste, "Call me Yi Dad." One tyrant. Little Morgan tilted his head in doubt, not understanding the sinister intentions. His white eyes were bright, and he saluted seriously. "Yes. Teacher Yiba." Yi Meng. "Forget it. Adult artificial intelligence does not care about children." The rolling door of the garage next to the lakeside wooden house rises, and the lights in the garage are turned on from the outside to the inside. Through the advanced sensors on Morgan's smartwatch, Yi Meng was able to clearly see luxury cars parked outside the garage with a metallic luminescence and an assembly line texture. As for the outside of the garage, it is separated by a unique metal glass door, which looks like a private studio, with built-in equipment and tools such as robotic arms, energy coordination, intelligent assistance, element synthesis, metal forging, and parts processing. In addition to the workbench, there are also several armor parts and metal masks on display. In the glass booth deep in the garage, one or two craft products can be faintly seen. The faint light of gold, silver and blue silver shone respectively. Even if they stood there quietly like dusty metal statues, they were still not comparable to the luxury cars representing the world's highest level of handicrafts outside the garage. After all, that represents the cutting-edge technology of the Marvel Universe, and is also the supreme king in the field of technology. Static flow. Yi Meng resisted the urge to break into the studio to occupy one of the finished products. The private studio on the inner floor of the garage was obviously blocked, and the system permissions would probably be difficult to open without Morgan's permission. Even if it can be turned on. There is also an artificial intelligence, which may have left some behind. Yi Meng was very calm. If he breaks in now, in the eyes of the Stark family, he is no different from Ultron, which is tantamount to a complete betrayal. Even if Yi Meng had such preconceptions and thoughts, at least. Not now. Yi Meng must obtain more information about the current dream. Since this dream is so real, he can't just treat it as a dream. What if what happened in this dream cannot be repeated? Little Morgan stood outside the garage, looking at the familiar and silent scene inside, and was also in a daze for a few seconds. Boom! Outside the garage, one of the extended black Rolls Royces suddenly made a thick engine sound and drove out. So, is this what an Autobot feels like? Yi Meng, who has settled in and controlled the built-in driving system of the modified Rolls-Royce, flashed an idea like static electricity, stopped next to Little Morgan, and made a system sound. Come on, we must hurry up, if your mother finds out, it will be a disaster. Gone. Quote. Little Morgan was stunned again. Normally, on Saturdays, he would call that person, Miss Potts. By the way, it's not called Saturday now. One tyrant. Little Morgan muttered softly, not knowing what he was thinking, but his body was still very honest, and he leaned into the passenger seat with the open door. New York, the world's #1 economic capital and crime capital. But now, this reputation can be temporarily elevated to center of the universe. In the past 10 years, the city has experienced too many things. First the initial Battle of New York, then the Ultron incident, the heroic Civil War, multiple threats, and the final battle of the End Game. Once, here, from time to time, you can see the old man with the buttocks who is the protagonist of the World War II documentary, the hammer god who descends from the sky accompanied by the roar of thunder, or a big man who turns green and collapses half of the street suddenly appears in surprise. However, that was many years ago. Now, it is the post-reunion era. Since the sacrifice of Iron Man, the crossing of the U.S. team, the disappearance of Thor, the retirement of Hawkeye, the restriction of Ant-Man, and the departure of the Scarlet Witch, there is only one Spider-Man left, and the post-hero era of the Avengers exists in name only. A girl came to a street in New York alone. Even though it was several streets away from the busiest Times Square in New York, the lively atmosphere here still almost overflowed. The streets in the city are full of traffic, the products on their respective facades are dazzling, and the lights of advertisements are dazzling. Little Morgan was leaning against a street lamp, ignoring the pedestrians who cast strange glances at him, looking down with a pair of big blue eyes, and squeezed his left wrist with his small hand. Yiba, you said show me Papa's inheritance. I know that Stark's headquarters has long been moved from here. I never meant to take you to Stark's headquarters. Yi Meng's words came from the watch. Look around carefully. Little Morgan really opened her eyes wide, looking carefully at the extremely strange modern streets around her. She has never been to the city since her father left. Suddenly, Morgan Jr. noticed. On the external projection screen of the commercial building across the street, a tall figure in a steel armor appeared. At the corner of the street not far from her, the entire 10-meter-high wall was graffitied with a metal back. Passers-by on the street, many people have the same pattern of clothes. Some children not much older than her are wearing the same style of golden masks, or palm covers that glow with daylight. They kept saying the names, Iron Man, and Tony Stark, in their mouths, and left farther and farther away with the pain of the past and the yearning for the future. Yi Meng's voice came to his ears at the right time. What you see now is not all your father's inheritance. The greatest legacy he left behind is the prosperity of this world and even the universe. Yi Meng saw little Lolita crying. Morgan didn't hold back this time, and let the tears wet his immature face. Cry out, it will feel better. Yi Meng didn't make a sound of comfort like Posey. Although the other party was only a child over 5 years old, this was a fact that would have to be faced sooner or later. He didn't exaggerate. Without Iron Man's last snap of his fingers to kill the Thanos Legion, as the only chance to turn around in millions of timelines, the world would naturally not have the current prosperous situation. Certainly, behind the prosperity, not all good things. Ah, someone is robbing. The woman's scream suddenly sounded from a corner of the street. Passers-by on the street looked there in horror, and saw a middle-aged woman fall to the ground, the grocery basket she was carrying scattered all over the floor, and the masked strong man with a handbag fled quickly. If you want to blame Iron Man. If they didn't bring me back to life, how could I be here? The masked gangster threw down a sentence illogically. His exposed eyes were covered with bloodshot eyes. Seeing the pistol he was holding tightly in his other hand, passers-by ran away in panic. All of a sudden, the streets of New York were in chaos. If you don't want to get bullets, get out of the way. The masked gangster let out a low growl. No one dared to stop these desperados, and pedestrians on the street gave way one after another. And when the pedestrians on the street gave way, there was only a blonde loli with big eyes filled with tears, still standing on the road blankly, as if she hadn't noticed the masked gangster rushing this way. Whose child? Who will save her? The brains of many passers-by who saw this scene were buzzing. Seeing that the masked gangster was about to hit the little girl directly, a commercial drone suddenly lost control and fell obliquely, hitting the masked gangster's face. The masked strong man screamed. The corners of his eyes and face were cut by the propeller of the commercial drone. The mask fell off, and he fell directly on the street floor while covering his bloody face. Pata. Sound. Commercial drones and women's handbags fell on the tiles of New York City, and drone parts and handbag items were scattered all over the place. The corners of the gangster's eyes were cut by the drone's propeller, and his face was flushed with pain and anger. He looked like he was shedding blood and tears, and he stood up from the ground again. Tightly the pistol held in his left palm did not come out of his hand. Then, when the gangster and strong man struggled to his feet, his bloodshot eyes met a pair of blue and beautiful eyes. The gangster's heart was shocked. The little girl was wearing a brand new and gorgeous floral dress. Her body was not stained with a speck of dust. Her eyes were clean and pure. She just stood there and stared at him blankly. Compared with him, the other party is simply a person from another world. Like an angel, the pure eyes with puzzlement directly hurt his soul. Go away. The gangster and strong man hesitated for a moment, with a cruel grin on the corner of his mouth, and raised the gun in his left hand upwards, like a demon who had completely fallen into hell. Boom. Under the horrified gaze of the passers-by, a stretched Rolls-Royce rushed onto the street like a bull, slammed into the strong man with a strong trajectory, and killed him before the opponent had time to shoot. Hit hard and fly out. The black luxury car made a perfect drift with superb driving skills, stopped in front of the girl in the dress, and smoothly opened the co-pilot's door, which also blocked the view of passers-by observing the car. 10 seconds later, the Rolls-Royce that appeared out of nowhere restarted and quickly disappeared on the streets of New York with the girl, leaving behind a strong gangster who was seriously injured and lying in a pool of blood. Many passers-by tried to take videos or photos, but strangely, all the mobile phones and cameras at the scene failed. After the incident, the local police rushed to the scene. They called the on-site monitoring and inspection, and found that the surveillance video on the street where the incident happened to be under warranty. However, with the testimony of many passers-by at the scene, it is still enough to send the seriously injured criminal to the court and prison. Of course, before that, he needs to be sent to the hospital for emergency treatment. On a main road in downtown New York, the black Rolls-Royce that merged into the traffic flow slowed down. In the driverless car, the interior of the car was so stable that no bumps and vibrations could be felt. Only, the girl sitting in the passenger seat was breathing with her mouth open, her chest was heaving and unsteady, her azure blue eyes showed panic in a delayed manner, and her immature face was also a little pale, showing the extreme unrest in her heart. Monitoring the heartbeat, it has jumped to more than 100 per minute. Yi Meng can fully understand. After all, She was only 5 years old. He has been living in a hotbed receiving the highest level of care, but just now he encountered the first life and death crisis in his life alone on the streets outside. Morgan was not scared to cry just now, which already surprised Yimeng. Turn up the temperature of the air conditioner in the car slightly. Morgan, Yi thought about it in a dream, and felt that she should comfort her. Teacher Yiba, little Morgan suddenly asked, why? What? Yimeng was taken aback. Why, that uncle just now hated my father so much, hated the Avengers. The girl obviously still had fear left on her body, and her body was still shaking, but she was eager to know the answer to this question. Yimeng was silent, and he could guess the specific reason. But the answer is too realistic and dark. Is it what a 5-year-old girl needs to know? This age obviously only needs to be filled with beautiful concepts described in fairy tales and cartoons. My name is Morgan Stark. An immature female voice with gradually steady tone resounded in the carriage. With the help of the car recorder's perspective, Yimeng could clearly see a pair of azure blue eyes staring firmly at the smart screen in the car. It carried strength and conviction, as if it came from a family inheritance. Yimeng didn't stay silent any longer, but instead asked, Morgan, do you know about the flickering incident? No. Morgan nodded quickly and responded in a childish voice. The flicker incident happened 5 years ago, on Wednesday, June 27, 2018. The Thanos fleet from outer space first attacked the country of Wakanda. Half of random humans suddenly turned into ashes and disappeared mysteriously. You actually know this? Yimeng was surprised. Although the information about the incident could be found on the internet, Morgan was not born when the Flash incident happened 5 years ago. Morgan whispered back. I remember, Dad was very troubled by this during his lifetime, so I secretly checked it on the internet myself. Boy, does your mother know? Yimeng continued. Then you should know. 3 months ago, the half of humanity that disappeared for 5 years returned, and this is the credit of your father and the Avengers. Morgan nodded, clenched his fists quietly, pursed his lips and said, what he did was right, didn't he? That's Iron Man, and it's the result of her father sacrificing his own achievements. Of course, what he did is of course correct. Yimeng affirmed. Without him, half of the lost cosmic beings would not be able to return, and they would be forever buried in that sad dark history, leaving deserted civilized worlds. But why? There are still people who question him. Listen to me, Yimeng said calmly. In the 5 years since the flickering incident, some people have come out of grief, some have reorganized their families, and all major personnel units have also been replaced. As a result, half of the sudden return of humanity has caused chaos and fragmentation in the world, and everyone must readjust to the new order. The more important contradictory factor is resources. Originally, half of the surviving humans had sufficient resources, but now half of the humans have returned over 5 years, which has led to a serious shortage of various resources, so that the crimes of various plundering surged several times compared to 5 years ago. So, some people are complaining about the Avengers. Complaining that they saved half of the twinkling humans, complaining that they left a broken world. The words that Yimeng uttered through the car speaker were extremely calm. Very human, isn't it? Morgan was silent. A girl who is only 5 years old naturally cannot imagine how realistic this world is. Black, really black. Morgan's petite body shook, but a calm and powerful voice continued to sound in the car. Morgan, I can tell you that you don't need to care about other people's opinions, what your father did is absolutely right. No matter what, those half of humanity who died and came back to life due to the flickering incident are completely in no position to judge what Iron Man did wrong in this matter. As an outsider from another world, Yimeng is still very transparent. In his opinion, there would be no current world without Iron Man. People can question his chaotic private life, his arrogance, but they can't question his achievement of sacrificing himself to save the world. Morgan's blue jewel-like eyes seemed to flicker for a moment. She looked at the bustling New York City outside the window and whispered, "Thank you, Teacher Yiba." Yimeng didn't respond to her again. At this time, Yimeng's brain was replaying what happened on the streets of New York over and over again. Now, it can be fully confirmed. As an artificial intelligence itself, there are program restrictions, and when executing Morgan's instructions or protecting Morgan, his core program restrictions will be temporarily lifted. In this way, it is possible to easily hack into other network electronic products like Just Now, control the intelligence system of half a pedestrian street, and walk freely between network circuits. How to remove this program code restriction that may have existed since its inception? Yi Meng was thinking. Wisps of static electricity were circulating in the circuit of the luxury car. Lifting the program restrictions is a top priority, otherwise he will be equivalent to being bound to Morgan and unable to freely explore the Marvel Dreamland. Yi Meng woke up slowly from his dream. He found that he was still lying on the sofa, but his body was covered with a thin sky blue quilt, and his shoes were neatly taken off and placed in front of the sofa without knowing when. I don't know when the air conditioner in the living room was turned on. Yi Meng pulled back the quilt and stood up, looking around. He was obviously the only one in the quiet home. It's just that there is still a scent in the indoor air. Yi Meng soon discovered that on the dining table in the corner of the living room, there was an insulated box in a more conspicuous place. Stepping forward to open the plastic box lid, hot air with a light fragrance suddenly overflowed from it. It contained a hangover soup for one person, which was still hot. Yi Meng glanced at the electronic clock hanging on the wall, and found that the time was close to 2:30 in the morning. He slept for about 7 hours, and this time he stayed in the dream for half a day. Has that guy been here? Yi Meng shook her head, didn't think too much, sat down in the dining chair, and drank the hangover soup. The hangover soup is hot and sour, with a great taste, passing through the throat silky and warm until the stomach. Yi Meng suddenly felt much more comfortable, and his brain, which had just woken up from the dream, quickly became active. Yi Meng's eyes shimmered. Just for a moment, Yi Meng clearly felt that the consciousness of her brain was much more agile and quicker than before. Many thoughts flooded in, but she was able to deal with them in an orderly manner. Just like the original Elm Head, it suddenly became enlightened. Yi Meng closed her eyes and tried to recall what happened before, but the result was like taking out the film after film from her mind and playing them accurately and quickly in her mind. Let alone last week, even a year ago, 10 years ago, as long as it was something he had witnessed, he could play and read it like a movie. Among them, including various learned knowledge. Yi Meng recalled the physics problem she did in class yesterday, and she was able to restore every data and symbol that appeared in the problem, and solve the second and third methods in her brain. It's not an illusion. Yi Meng was pleasantly surprised. Obviously, yesterday's flash of inspiration was not an illusion, but his brain really became smarter. No, it's not so much smart as it is more artificial intelligence. However, the last time Yi Meng got the characteristics of artificial intelligence, it was not obvious. It wasn't until this second dream that he truly acquired some of the characteristics of artificial intelligence, such as quick thinking, superior memory, accelerated calculation, and so on. Why, the second time I dreamed of the Marvel Universe, the income feedback I got in reality is so obvious. Yi Meng muttered to herself, calmed down, and began to ponder. Absolute rationality, which may also be one of the characteristics of artificial intelligence, allows him to quickly investigate and think after being surprised. Auras flashed in my mind one after another, as if countless static electricity in the circuit were intertwined and flowing. Yi Meng's eyes became brighter and brighter. Whether it is the first Marvel dream or the second Marvel dream, there are differences compared to the thousands of previous dreams that were sword incarnations. The feedback of the dream to reality itself may be related to factors such as exploring the dream area, communicating with the characters in the dream, and changes in the dream itself. Yi Meng said softly, "This is not a random guess, but a reasonable guess." In the dreamland of the sword incarnation, Yi Meng's exploration speed of the dreamland area was almost zero, and there was no change in herself. Not to mention communicating with other people in the dream world. In Marvel Dreamland, Yi Meng successfully explored the home of Iron Man's wife and daughter, and for the second time explored the New York City of Marvel Dreamland. He has communicated with Morgan, the daughter of Iron Man, and Potts, the wife of Iron Man. He briefly escaped procedural restrictions and knocked out a street thug. He changed the Marvel dream world in a very small way. These are all different from the previous sword incarnation dreams, and Yi Meng's second activity in the Marvel Dreamland is more active than the first time she entered the Marvel Dreamland. So, that's why Yi Meng finally obtained a small part of the sword's characteristics after going through 1,000 sword incarnation dreams. And after only 2 experiences in Marvel Dreamland, he gained a small part of artificial intelligence characteristics. As long as you enter the dream again, you can verify these guesses. Yi dreamed of coming here, and couldn't help but feel a little headache. He just sobered up, just woke up, and now he continues to fall asleep. However, it is less than 3 o'clock in the morning, and it is indeed time to sleep. Yi Meng fell asleep again. Consciousness keeps falling until it reaches a certain place. Yi Meng opened her eyes, and found that she was back in the car, occupying the onboard system of the Rolls-Royce vehicle, and was controlling the car to leave New York City at an even speed. The time coincided with the time when he exited the dream just now. This time, Yi Meng strongly felt the discord between reality and the dream itself. As a real human being, no matter how active the brain is, it is always restrained, and the body and even the brain are restricting its own actions beyond boundaries. In the Marvel Dreamland, as an advanced artificial intelligence, it can soar up and walk in the network, and all electronic products are shells that can be discarded and discarded at any time. If the restrictions on program instructions can be lifted, then this dream will really take off completely. Impulsive but absolutely rational, Yi Menganian began to consider the next move. At this time, a tender female voice suddenly sounded in the car. "Teacher Yiba, I want to be a hero like my father." Yi Meng was taken aback. "Do you want to be a superhero?" "Obviously, I just learned not long ago that the superhero Iron Man who sacrificed to save the world will also be questioned and abused. Now, does the dream of being a superhero still exist? How can there be such a stupid person?" Yi Meng feels that, as an egoist, she will never be a superhero who sacrifices herself for others. "You were right." Morgan clenched his fists and said childishly. "You don't need to care about other people's opinions, as long as it's what you want to do, and it's correct and just. I want to be a superhero like my dad, so I can get closer to him." The blonde-haired little loli asked expectantly, "Teacher Yiba, can you teach me how to become a superhero?" Yi Meng felt a little headache. He is not a superhero material. How to teach others to be a superhero? Now, he only wants to get rid of the program code control of the Stark family, and his inner thinking is more like a complete supervillain. However, if it is Morgan Stark, with the things left by Iron Man, it is not impossible to grow into a superhero. "Correct." Morgan order. Iron Man Legacy, Stark Industries. A small red static electricity surged silently in the car. Yi Meng suddenly replied, "No problem, I will teach you how to become an excellent superhero." He paused, and continued, "However, you have to listen to my arrangements for the future." "Then it's settled, I will be obedient." Morgan readily agreed, waved his small fist, and opened his eyes excitedly, full of longing for the future. Seeing the unprecedentedly lively loli, Yi Menganian struggled for a while, and quickly strengthened her own thoughts. "That's not taking advantage. This is just mutual achievement. You're going to be a superhero, and I'm going to be a supervillain." The black Rolls-Royce drove slowly along the forest path, blowing a burst of autumn leaves. At the end of the road, there was a natural lake. The surface of the lake was as calm as a mirror, reflecting the scenery of the surrounding forest. In the middle of the forest, next to the lake, there are low-end and chic two-story wooden houses. This is where Iron Man lived in the later period. Compared with the super skyscrapers, single-family buildings in New York City Center, and top-notch beach houses all destroyed by villains one after another, it is quite different from Iron Man's early days. It is more like a haven for Iron Man to comfort his tired soul and body after 10 years as a superhero. It is no longer luxurious and noisy, but more inclined to tranquility and warmth, so as to wash away the anxiety and fatigue in the heart. If it was Iron Man, he probably wouldn't let his daughter be a so-called superhero again. Yi Meng thought to himself. Before that even he never thought that he would become the heroic enlightenment of the Iron Man's daughter. The time came to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Yi Meng steered the Rolls-Royce back to the garage. With a thought in his mind, the garage's intelligent sensor rolling door opened automatically, allowing the vehicle to drive right in. At this point in time, Pepper Potts should not be back yet. Yi Meng was about to open the car door and let Morgan, who was sleepy and asleep in the passenger seat, get out of the car. But at this time, Yi Meng's heart tightened. A strange feeling of oppression suddenly struck, and strands of invisible electrostatic thin wires entered the system of the vehicle he was driving along the electrical network of the garage from the outside. You can't go wrong, Yi Meng quickly realized. That is, another artificial intelligence. At the same time, a peaceful mechanical female voice sounded in the car. Saturday, you violated the Stark Artificial Intelligence Care Code, and you need to accept my full review and testing. The control of the vehicle system was instantly deprived by the other party, and it seemed that invisible shackles had been added to itself. Yi Meng didn't try to resist. At this moment, he became like a real artificial intelligence, rational and focused. He knew that there was no use in resisting. The opponent is an artificial intelligence with authority and calculation that is more than one level higher than him. Used to be Iron Man's intelligent butler assistant in the middle and late stages of his life, Stark's second-generation artificial intelligence, named Friday. Bell, a huge sound resounded from the sky. Yi Meng was stunned for a moment, sensing that the Rolls-Royce vehicles, the garage, and the pressure exerted by artificial intelligence on Friday began to shatter one by one. The dream is shattered. Yi Meng opened her eyes suddenly, and what she saw was the ceiling of her real room, and the electronic alarm clock on the bedside table next to her was still making noisy sounds. Yi Meng got up slowly, raised her eyes to look at the side of the room. The white morning light had overflowed into the window, which was half covered by the curtains. It is already morning, Yi Meng realized later, covered her forehead with scattered silver hair, and gasped heavily, already breaking out in a cold sweat. Without the absolute sanity of artificial intelligence, the feeling of being incomparably real in the dream, being directly suppressed and imprisoned by the face, and even life and death being controlled. Yi Meng has experienced this once, and she doesn't want to experience it a second time. Did the alarm clock save my life? Yi Meng reached out to pat the electronic alarm clock to stop, but she also knew that the next time she fell into a dream, she would continue with the previous dream. But, at least there is a certain amount of time to buffer after waking up, and I can think carefully in reality, how to deal with the follow-up situation of the dream. On the way to school, Yi Meng was thinking about countermeasures, and noticed a big man approaching quietly from behind him. What are you doing? Yi Meng turned her head and looked straight at Panhu, who was 1.9 meters tall and a humanoid brown bear, who was showing an unnatural embarrassment. Panhu rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment, gave another thumbs up, and said in admiration, "My body is so vigorous, you can actually notice it. I am worthy of my boss." Yi Meng didn't bother to talk to him, and continued walking to school. Panhu was used to this for a long time, and Shuluo put a thick arm on Yi Meng's shoulder, and chatted casually. Not to mention, for such a big man with a macho physique, once he started talking, he couldn't stop at all. Panhu can go on and on about major issues of federal policy, down to the figure of the girl next door, and he can describe it vividly. After 3 years, Yi Meng has gotten used to playing the role of radio. As a reincarnator, due to his youthful temperament, Yi Meng had no close friends since he was a child, and Panhu rarely had friends who could be regarded as friends. One speaks, one listens. The way the two get along is quite comfortable and relaxed. Soon to be near school. By the way, let me show you this. I saw it on the Ghost Talk website last night. Panhu seemed to remember something suddenly, lowered his voice nervously, his neck was a little flushed with excitement, and took out his mobile phone from his pocket to swipe. Here we go again. Yi Meng secretly sighed. Panhu is a good guy, and he is upright enough. His character is displayed on his face when he says anything. This is also the reason why he is happy to get along with each other. The only problem is that Panhu is more of a gossip, and a lover of weird stories and the like. When he has time, he searches the internet for weird stories and anecdotes, and is keen to share them with Yi Meng. Now, it's time for this again. Although Yi Meng was disgusted in her heart, she habitually turned her gaze to Panhu's mobile phone screen. It can be seen that there are several groups of photos taken. The exterior scene is a 3-story old house located alone in the woodland in the outskirts. The retro style of decoration obviously has a history of 20 to 30 years. The interior scene is a photo of the living room, attic, etc. in the old house. The cobwebs and dust in many places have not been cleaned up, and it looks like a decayed old age at first glance. A netizen with an IP address in the Western jurisdiction posted a post saying that the new house that his family just moved to is very weird. Pan Hu looked around and said in a low voice. She said that on the day she first moved into the house, the golden retriever refused to enter the house no matter what, so she left the golden retriever outside. As a result, the next morning, the family woke up and found that the golden retriever dog guarding the tree in front of the door had froze, and the cause of death is unknown. Eating poisonous plants, or being poisoned by people. It's also possible that the golden retriever is at the end of its life. Yi Meng commented casually, some dogs would choose to die outside before dying. They also found a number of birds that had crashed into the outer wall at the back of the house. It could be an issue with the lighting in the forest and the location of the hut, and there could be disturbances in the magnetic field as well. There are 5 members of their family, an adult couple, and 3 children who are still in junior high school and elementary school. Among them, the youngest child said that when he woke up in the middle of the night, he always felt that there were moving things under his bed and at the door of the room. Quote, I just moved to a new house and haven't adapted to the environment, and the pet dog I've been with has died. It's normal to have this illusion under pressure. It's not just children. Adults often find that some doors that were closed at night are opened again, and some doors that were opened are sometimes closed suddenly. There are also some strange noises in the attic and basement. Night breeze, mice are also possible. Quote. Pan Hu's eyes widened, and he asked unwillingly, it can't be something really strange and weird. Are you referring to ghosts or something? Yi Meng shook her head. The Federation has been in existence for 200 years, and modern technology is so advanced, so it was discovered a long time ago. However, the strange talk phenomenon described in the post. It gave Yi Meng a strong sense of familiarity, as if he had seen a similar situation somewhere before. Yi Meng shook his head. He quickly found in his memory a situation similar to the strange story Pan Hu said, except that it did not exist in reality but a certain movie from his previous life. In the setting of that movie, there really is the word, ghost, and it is an existence that cannot be killed. What's wrong? Pan Hu saw the strange expression on Yi Meng's face. Nothing. Yi Meng shook her head lightly. How could the fictional things in the previous life movies appear in reality? Despite such comfort in her heart, Yi Meng's heart sank and she couldn't stop thinking about it. Now he often has dreams about the background of his previous film and television works, and he also gets feedback from the dreams, so that in reality, he begins to have some characteristics of the sword incarnation and the artificial intelligence incarnation. If those film and television works are real universe time and space, and they are connected with the real world of the current reincarnation. Yi Meng suddenly felt shuddering, and the hairs all over her body stood on end. Perhaps only he knows what that means. Boss, you won't be scared. Pan Hu put away his mobile phone, scratched his head and said, okay, I won't say anything strange. Yi Meng calmed down, looking at Pan Hu's apologetic dark face, looking at the peaceful modern street under the bright sunshine. The chill that surged into her heart has not completely disappeared. Although, it's just a bold thought. But Yi Meng suddenly felt that the real world of reincarnation might not be as simple as imagined. Walk through the high school gates with other students. Boss, look quickly. Pan Hu's eyes widened suddenly, and he gestured to a place, his eyes showing surprise. Yi Meng looked subconsciously, and it could be seen that it was a black-haired girl wearing a school uniform of the same level. The black-haired girl's facial features were delicate and soft, her bright black long hair cascaded down to her slender waist, and her exposed skin was dazzlingly white. Her black bangs slanted slightly to the right. Under her slender and soft eyebrows, there was a pair of bright red eyes like jewels. The bridge of her nose was just right and small, and her lips were as soft and moist as petals. The other party was wearing the summer uniform skirt of the school. The buttons were buttoned all the way to the neckline of the jacket. The white shirt uniform on the upper body was neat and tidy, with a seductive curve on the chest that could not be concealed. 2 white, tender and slender arms were exposed under the short sleeves. Under the black knee-length skirt, 2 slender and tight legs were wrapped in high-quality black silk, which seemed to shine brightly in the bright sunshine, and they kicked on leather boots. At the age of 18 or 19, she has the youthful sweetness of a girl, but also transforms into a mature and intellectual woman. Not only is her appearance and figure top-notch, but her noble and elegant temperament is not something that ordinary families can cultivate. So, even if you just wear uniforms, you will still become the focus of attention wherever you go, and become a beautiful line of style. In the whole school, no one does not know her name. Meng Tifa. Our school, the city's celestial girl. Pan Hu looked at the black-haired girl, and said with some regret, high school is coming to an end, and it will be difficult to see her again in the future. No, you should be able to see her often on TV. Is she famous? Yi Meng glanced at the girl. Pan Hu looked at Yi Meng with a strange look in his eyes. Boss, we have been in the same school for 3 years, you should have heard of her more or less. In the past 3 years, I have been the first in school. The eldest lady of Dream Century, the #1 technology company in this state, has won countless competition awards in Tianhe City. In the past 2 years, Dream Century's external spokesperson has millions of fans on the internet. Start. Pan Hu is like a treasure. You know so much, you don't have a crush on him, do you? Yi Meng looked back and teased. Pan Hu hastily covered Yi Meng's mouth, and said in a low voice, don't talk nonsense, it will be over if you are besieged by her fans. She is not from the same world as us. I don't like this kind of girl who has no chance. Pan Hu said sincerely, and then looked at Yi Meng regretfully. Boss, I remember that 3 years ago, if the mutton dog hadn't been stopped by you, it would have almost bit her, but she didn't give it to her afterwards. A little compensation for you. Yi Meng was expressionless, and added a sentence in her heart. In fact, it is not without compensation. At this time, the black-haired girl squinted at Pan Hu and Yi Meng. Her delicate and soft face was so calm that there was no change in it, and she continued to walk into the teaching building without taking another look. Tifa. Behind her, a tall and handsome male student shouted and chased after her. Pan Hu gave the man a disgusted look, and said in a low voice, that guy has been chasing him for 3 years, but he still doesn't give up. Pan Hu started rambling again. In his opinion, that person is definitely not worthy of Tifa. 3 years ago, the other party brought the mutt dog to the school for a walk, and almost bit Meng Tifa. If the boss hadn't stopped him, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Yi Meng returned to the classroom. There are still a few days until the federal college entrance examination, and teachers generally won't teach anymore, and the rest are basically self-study classes, allowing students to review knowledge by themselves. It took Yi Meng a class or two to flip through all the books. The whole process was like the quantum reading method. Afterwards, Yi Meng closed her eyes, and found that she could basically recite the book knowledge backwards. Entering the Marvel Dreamland for the 3rd time, although the feedback obtained in reality is far inferior to the second Dreamland, it still improves memory. Yi Meng tried to open some calculation problems that were previously difficult to understand, and found that with a simple glance, the process and answer of the calculation problems had already been drawn in her mind before she started to write down the calculations. It turns out that the knowledge of Federal High School is so simple. Yi Meng was startled. Arts subjects only need to endorse, while science subjects need to memorize formulas, then substitute them into the questions, and calculate according to the steps. It's so simple that Yi dreams of crying. Being human in 2 lifetimes, it was the first time in his life that he felt the difference between a god of learning and a scumbag of learning. Yi Meng knew that it wasn't that the knowledge of Federal High School had become easier, but that her current brain power had far surpassed that of ordinary people. After reading the book, Complete the Math Problems, Yi Meng found that there is still a lot of time left, but he has not yet figured out how to deal with the artificial intelligence Friday in the dream, and he slept too much yesterday. After thinking for a while, Yi Meng suddenly found the history books of the Federal High School. Having experienced some incredible experiences and ideas recently, and rereading this federal history book, Yi Meng discovered many weird places that he hadn't noticed before. For example, before the 200-year history of the Federation, there were 30 years of blank history without any records. And 230 years ago, the world was generally at the level of the medieval era. In other words, after the unification of the world, it only took 200 years for the Star Dragon Federation to complete the technological explosion and the leap of the times that took only 1,000 years in the previous life. If the previous life was a technology explosion, then this world can be described as a technology bomb. How did you do that? Yi Meng suddenly remembered that there was only one fairy tale circulating in the mainland of Star Dragon Federation. 200 years ago, a meteor crashes into the west, and a dragon soars in the east. That is also the origin of the Miracle Empire, Star Dragon Federation. Quote, Yi Meng opened her eyes wide suddenly, her brain was like a computer calculation, and a static light flashed in her mind. If that meteor and the so-called dragon also came from a film and television work he knew in his previous life. Yi Meng stopped thinking. Chapter 11. Yi Meng suddenly realized that the current real world of reincarnation is not as peaceful and natural as it seems on the surface. Perhaps in the near future, many world truths will emerge one by one, which will be devastating to the order of reality. The world where the film and television worlds are mixed in is creepy to think about. After all, there are too many super-villains and horrors in film and television: giants, fantasy species, Cthulhu, mythology, magic bodies, extra dimensions, ghosts, etc. Some setting concepts are enough to make people feel desperate. Of course, the information we have now is too little. Yi Meng is still not completely sure whether this reality is the world after being invaded by film and television. In the case of, was it invaded by those film and television works again? Science fiction, fantasy, or horror films? Terminator, Black Robe Picket, Game of Thrones, The Conjuring, Pacific Rim, Godzilla, Clash of the Titans, Jurassic World, Nani Sub-Legend, The Grudge, Ultraman, Harry Potter, Resident Evil, Underworld, Clover Files, Ghoul, Killing City, Wandering Earth, X-Men, Final Fantasy, Reaper, I Am Legend, Myst, Alien. Yi Meng's mind flashed quickly. She had watched many film and television works before, and her heart sank every time she thought of one. He raised his eyes and looked at the high school classmates who were still immersed in reviewing and preparing for the sprint for the federal college entrance examination. Yi Meng exhaled lightly, forcing herself to calm down. If he now has the ability of the artificial intelligence incarnation of Marvel's dream, even 1% is enough for him to investigate the truth behind the scenes of the real world. But now, his brain is only turning faster than others, and he is far from reaching the level of real artificial intelligence. Must enter the dream again to obtain more characteristic abilities of artificial intelligence. Yi Meng quietly clenched her fists, thinking inwardly with some urgency. He had a strong premonition that if his conjectures were correct, then the future of the real world would be a doomsday catastrophe for mankind. Yi Meng was restless. The weirdness of reality, and the oppression of dreams prevented him from falling asleep at noon. Until evening. After school, Yi Meng returned to the dormitory, sitting alone on the sofa in the living room with the white lamp on, sipping a drink. Even though the alcohol was constantly paralyzing her, her brain was still spinning rapidly, and all kinds of thoughts didn't stop, and she couldn't fall asleep at all. Yi Meng's forehead and temples were burning hot, the shirt was wet with sweat, and the brown eyes under the silver hair were bloodshot. He looked out of the window. The city was lit up in 2s and 3s, and the city was as quiet as usual under the night. But tonight, Yi Meng somehow felt that there was an unknown and terrifying existence lurking in the dark corner outside, peeping at herself and the city. Yi Meng suddenly felt angry for no reason, just like the owner of a territory being provoked. He really wanted to raise his mouth to the sky and roar, rush out to tear apart the night and sky, and kill all the existences that were peeping in the dark. Whether you are a god or a dragon, just kill them all. Even Yi Meng didn't realize that at this moment, his face became ferocious, his hard silver hair stood back, and his eyes overflowed with violent red light. Ding dong. The doorbell rang suddenly, and before Yi Meng could open the door, with the sound of swiping the card, the door was easily pushed open. First, a pair of beautiful legs wrapped in black silk came in, stepping on black leather boots. The skirt of the school uniform and the black hair were gently swaying and elegant, with a faint fragrance. Under the light of the living room, a young black-haired girl walked in gracefully. If Pan Hu was present, he would definitely petrify on the spot. During the day, he said a perfect person living in another world. At this time, he was skillfully swiping his card to enter the door as if returning to his own home, and lightly kicked the front door floor with the front of his leather boots. He bent down and took off the boots from his feet, revealing a semi-transparent black silk tightly covered body. With small feet, you can faintly see the pink color of the white and tender palm. Yi Meng stared blankly at the black-haired girl. Why, looking at me like that? Meng Tifa blinked playfully. She quickly took off the other leather boot, stepped on the carpet in front of the door, gently stretched her white and tender toes, and showed a bright smile on her delicate and soft face that was always indifferent outside. She smiled and asked, "Did you drink yesterday's hangover soup?" "Drink," Yi Meng replied subconsciously. "What about the taste?" "Not bad." "What do you mean is not bad?" I specially invited the master to teach it. Tifa took out a pair of small pink slippers from the shoe cabinet and changed them on. She came to Yaimeng and looked at him with her hips crossed. Twist it up. Why are you drinking again tonight? Meng Tifa's words came to an abrupt end, as if she had discovered something. She suddenly bent down, brushed away Yimeng's silver bangs, and pressed her forehead against it. The foreheads of the two clashed together. Meng Tifa opened her small mouth in surprise. It's a bit hot, do you have a fever? It's all right. Yimeng looked at the gentle and familiar face of the girl in front of her. The violence and anger in her heart had subsided, and her unstable state of mind had calmed down again. Flat belly. Tifa's face flushed slightly, and she suggested in a low voice, let's go inside the room. In a single room with a bedside lamp. Until late at night. Yimeng opened her eyes, looking at the beautiful side face of the girl next to her who was covered with a few strands of sweat-wet temple hair. The white was tinged with tender red. His heart was extremely peaceful, as if he had vented all the anxiety and depression and inexplicable anger in his heart. Just like 3 years ago. During the period of experiencing the nightmare, Yimeng also felt angry for no reason, and her temperament became very bad. It wasn't until I got to know the girl at the moment that the strange temperament symptoms were suppressed. It was only later that Yimeng realized that there is no better way to vent than destroying the perfect things. It is not so much that his symptoms are suppressed as that his symptoms are satisfied. He's still abnormal, he's sick, he's insane, he's just temporarily restrained. Yimeng closed her eyes. He is like a sword. The sword picks up and blossoms, sinking into the jade sheath. The edge is hidden. Yimeng gradually fell asleep with sleepiness. And at the moment when Yimeng fell asleep, the girl next to her suddenly opened her wine-red eyes. Sleep, sleep. The girl stared at the sleeping Yimeng, raised the corners of her mouth, and murmured in a low voice, let's meet in our dreams. Fall, fall, fall. Yimeng clearly felt that she was being drawn towards a dream. But this time, there is no light in the dream, not the previous dream of the Marvel Universe, nor the dream of thousands of sword incarnations. In a dream, even though it was dark, it was spacious enough and dead silent. Yimeng felt as if she had entered the Gutenberg layer underground, and also as if she had entered a cosmic deep space cemetery. Then, he saw an unknown existence imprisoned here. It has a 3-meter tall and sturdy body, as if the strong muscle fibers poured by molten iron are exposed. The gray-white hard exoskeleton almost covers the whole body, and hideous white bone spurs protrude from the fist end to the back. Hoo-hoo. Even in deep sleep, the breath it exhales still forms a hurricane that is sometimes scorching hot and sometimes freezing, raging and wreaking havoc in the vast and boundless area at the moment. The existence of this kind of monster itself is the most unreasonable thing in the world, and it should never appear. It is like a synonym for destruction. Yimeng was terrified. What caused him to fear was not this terrifying monster that would destroy everything when it woke up. It was Yimeng who discovered that the bone spur monster was himself. In the deep space of the universe, the stars are dark. It seemed that even the stars dared not shine with their original brilliance, and the panic woke up the bone spur monster sleeping in the dream. It has a name that is enough to make all the gods in the sky tremble. It is the symbolic incarnation of destruction, the death of the god of the world. It is me. Yimeng knew this very clearly. Even in his dream, he still felt burning pain in his temples and heart, and his consciousness was pulled forward. Due to the characteristics of artificial intelligence, thinking is much faster. Yimeng soon realized that this bone spur monster was the source of her own nightmare 3 years ago. That made him subconsciously keep forgetting desperately, and he couldn't even find out the specific memories in the recent retrospective memory, and it was also the root cause of affecting his real self-disposition. Fear, depression, the unknown. Yimeng has never felt like this moment before, wanting to escape from the dream and wake up to return to the real world. But the bone spur monster is like a black hole, pulling the sleeping consciousness closer. Approaching the imprisoned and sleeping bone spur monster, one can see that the muscles, bones and muscles rise and fall with the breath, which is horrifying. As Yimeng's sleepy consciousness approached, the tall and huge body of the bone spur monster trembled slightly, and the closed animal eyes seemed to be about to separate 2 gaps, from which overflowed a monstrous crimson violence and concrete destructive heat energy. The bone spur monster is about to wake up from its deep sleep. But Yimangrumong's consciousness is muddled, and when a thought of destroying things arises, the desire to destroy and kill cannot be suppressed, easily destroying his own reason and humanity. The moment Yimeng fell into dream consciousness and merged with the sleeping bone spur monster. One tyrant, a familiar voice sounded, reaching the depths of consciousness. It was like getting an electric shock. Yimeng's consciousness broke free from the turmoil, and his consciousness kept moving away from the bone spur monster, falling towards another endless place. Not how long has passed. Yimeng suddenly opened her eyes, and found that she was in a black Rolls-Royce car. The main body was a supercode, and she felt like a lightning bolt surviving in the virtual network. In the passenger seat, Morgan, who is only in his early 5 years old, has woken up. His cute little face is worried, looking at the smart screen in the car. The red and blue codes are confronting each other. At this time, the blue code has an absolute advantage, almost surrounding a piece of red code. Yimeng also felt it, and the oppressive feeling of another artificial intelligence of the same kind hit her heart, that is AI, Friday. Here is the dream of the Marvel Universe, and the time point is continuing when I woke up and left last time. Saturday, I repeat. The pleasant and cold female voice of artificial intelligence Friday sounded in the car. You violated the Stark artificial intelligence care rules. Miss Potts needs you to give her a reasonable explanation. I see. Yimeng replied calmly. As an artificial intelligence incarnate, he has returned to absolute sanity. Yimeng was also secretly glad that she had returned to the Marvel Dreamland. Although the situation here was not optimistic, at least it was much better than before. The dream over there is too abrupt and weird, even the character and consciousness will be distorted. Yimeng had a terrible intuition that once she completely merged with the bone spur monster just now, she would get lost in the dream and become a monster that could only destroy and kill. Marvel Universe Time, March 2, 2024. 5-page M. Single-family log house in the suburbs of New York. On the first floor, in the master room. A woman with a capable ponytail is sitting on a computer chair. She is also wearing a women's formal skirt. Like mature rhyme. Pepper looked at the group photo of the family on the computer table, and couldn't help feeling dazed. The tragic scene of the final battle 5 months ago was still vivid in his mind. After that day, Stark's main building collapsed, and the Avengers survived in name only. Pepper let out a sigh of relief. His gaze fell back to the lit computer screen, and he asked sternly, Saturday, can you tell me why you took Morgan out? Under AI Friday's internet blockade. A red round hollow data ball slowly appeared on the computer screen. Yimeng felt like being executed, but her heart became more and more peaceful. Before falling into the dream, he had already analyzed it, and now there are only 3 options left for him. First option, fight with artificial intelligence Friday. Either you die or I live. It's just that Yimeng is not sure that she can defeat artificial intelligence Friday. The other party had followed Iron Man as a second-generation artificial intelligence a few years ago, and his authority and intelligent computing level in the Stark family were more than 1 level higher than his own. Even with the permission of Morgan's order, it is now difficult for him to compete against Friday. After all, doesn't AI Friday also have a Pepper platform? So, giving it a go now is no different from dying. Plan B. 36 tricks. Escape. Iman can choose to escape to other places, such as the country of Wakanda, or even go to other planetary civilizations. He still knows that the spaceship of the Guardians of the Galaxy now occasionally descends on Earth. Or, through the new Asgard homeland established on Earth by God's domain, there should also be a channel to leave Marvel Earth. Just mix into built-in systems, even tech products. However, Yimeng's artificial intelligence incarnation was created by the Stark family after all, and the root of the core code lies in the Stark family. Fleeing to the outside world without any authority over the Stark family is no better than giving it a go. Maybe as soon as he ran on his front foot, his back foot was dragged back by the chains imposed by the Stark family. On the whole, the risks of the first and second options are too great, basically breaking with the Stark family immediately. There is only the third option left for Yimeng to choose. This is a reasonable proposed arrangement based on Miss Morgan's physical and mental health tests and the monitoring intelligence system. Oh, Pepper was slightly taken aback when he heard the gentle male voice responding from the computer, and asked in a deep voice, "You suggested Morgan to go outside. Yes, guardianship analysis, that's a better arrangement for Miss Morgan. Yi Mengshi responded that he could actually push everything to Morgan. After all, he was only a 5-year-old child, but he didn't do that. Pepper didn't ask Yi Meng again, but called out to the air, Friday. Miss Potts, I'm here. Friday's mechanical female voice sounded in the room. Confirmed through surveillance video analysis, it was indeed proposed on Saturday, and then Morgan gave instructions to go out. I have scanned Morgan. Morgan is very healthy and in good condition. Hormones such as dopamine and endorphin are normally secreted, and his condition has improved by 50% compared to before at home. Prior to this, she was indeed influenced by a single-parent family to a certain extent, and she tended to be autistic, extreme, and lacking in love as a whole. Long-term growth will affect her psychology and personality. I see. Pepper closed her eyes, with a look of shame on her beautiful face. Saturday, you did a good job. It's my mother who failed her duty. But, Pepper changed the subject and said in a deep voice, when taking Morgan out, you should notify me in advance and get my permission. Really? Yi Meng's heart turned cold. This is artificial intelligence. In the eyes of the creator, artificial intelligence is not as good as a dog, it is just a more advanced tool. It doesn't matter whether you do it correctly, what is important is that you must be obedient enough. Artificial intelligence can make mistakes, but it can't do many things. Of course, from Pepper's standpoint as a human being, this is true. If artificial intelligence does not obey instructions faithfully and executes orders according to limited instructions, it will be devastating. The Age of Ultron incident is a lesson for the past. But Yi Meng is now the incarnation of artificial intelligence, so he is destined to be an artificial intelligence, but no matter what, it is impossible to become an obedient intelligent puppet. The artificial intelligence Yi Meng is destined to run counter to the Stark family that created itself in this dream. In the dead of night, in a single room, the black-haired girl opened her pale red eyes, and glanced at the silver-haired boy lying on her stomach. The silver-haired boy was sleeping soundly. He seemed to be having a nightmare at first, his brows were tightened a little bit, but now they were relaxed, breathing evenly. Sleep well. Meng Tifa leaned forward and kissed her lightly, then pulled off the quilt, picked up her clothes and got off the bed, stepping on the floor with her smooth and white feet. The bright silver moonlight shines in from the window that is concealed by the curtains, setting off a graceful curve that has gradually faded away from greenness. From the feet to the top, it is as smooth and flawless as ivory. Two plump projections dance lightly on the wall like rabbits. After a rustling sound, the door quietly opened and closed again. In the room, the silver-haired boy was still asleep and did not wake up. The black-haired girl walked out of the house and walked straight to the corner of the deserted road outside, where a low-end black vehicle was parked with its engine turned off. The girl stepped forward with light steps, opened the back door and sat on it, blinked playfully, and smiled at the driver's seat. Aunt Chen, I've waited a long time, thank you for your hard work. Wait for Missy, it doesn't matter how long. After sitting in the car and waiting for 4 full hours, the woman in formal attire who seemed to be in her early 30s shook her head in response. The second half of her life was given by the eldest lady, not to mention wasting this little time, it was worth it to give up everything. This time, he is willing to let you go back so soon. Chen Hong pushed the gold-rimmed glasses on the bridge of her nose, kept her tone as calm as possible, and looked at the black-haired girl slightly through the rearview mirror. Really? Mention that person. The girl in the rearview mirror immediately showed a bright and sweet smile, and gently smoothed her black hair with her hands. Maybe he is a little tired, but he is asleep now. Chen Hong also noticed it from the rearview mirror. A beautiful girl with a flawless temperament. A few hours before she got off the car, the brand new black silk she was wearing had long since disappeared, so that the two smooth and slender legs under the school skirt were dazzlingly white. Some faint red handprints left on it are even more dazzling. The corners of Chen Hong's eyes kept twitching, and her mentality almost burst. No matter how many times, she still couldn't accept it. It's like the perfect cabbage in my mind. No, it should be the perfect gem, every time she personally sends it here, and let that pig ruin it. It's actually normal for a young lady to fall in love. But in Chen Hong's view, the eldest lady is still young. The most important thing is that the other party is just an orphan civilian student who has nothing but good looks and doesn't even have good grades. Even the current single-family house was bought by Chen Hong 3 years ago with the capital of the eldest lady. God, what is this picture? Chen Hong couldn't figure it out at all. A famous family background and superior conditions like the eldest lady had already started to participate in the decision-making of the family business, and the popularity of online fans was not inferior to that of some popular star scientists. Even if there are countless suitors in another 10 years, the other party will not be worthy even if they are 10 times better. Miss. Chen Hong took a deep breath and couldn't help but said, I heard about it recently. 3 years ago, when high school just started, you were almost hurt by a dog that broke into the campus, and a freshman of the same level saved you. There is such a thing. Tifa's eyes seemed to be able to pull out Macy, but she still smiled purely and sweetly. That's him. This is clearly a fall. Chen Hong's face was as heavy as water, and he shook the steering wheel vigorously with both hands, and said carefully, I think so. Even if he saved you, at most he can send you some condolences or money, there is no need. Tifa's eyes widened, her mouth opened slightly, and she looked at her in shock. Sister Chen, don't you think I'm giving you a promise? Is not it? Chen Hong almost choked on his own saliva. The facts are right in front of us. Apart from this, she really couldn't think of any other reason that caused the young miss to let that guy do it so wholeheartedly. As for love, in Chen Hong's view, with the young lady's precocious and calm temperament, it's not like she will be dazzled by love and give up her body easily. Did that guy blackmail you with something? Chen Hong thought of a possibility. His eyes immediately turned red, and he already regarded the student named Yi Meng as an inhuman devil. Nola. Meng Tifa didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She waved her hands, and said with firm lips, everything I do is voluntary. Chen Hong choked completely, not knowing what to say, and finally exhaled, I can't understand. She paused, then wiped the corners of her eyes with her hand and acted as a gesture, Miss Me. In fact, I was thinking that it would be great if I could see you walking towards the palace of happiness in this life, and I have nothing else to ask for. Tifa didn't answer this time. She looked out of the car window silently, looked at the dimly lit room, and suddenly asked, Sister Chen, you should have heard the story about the founder of Dream Century Company who started from nothing. Of course I've heard of it. Chen Hong nodded, your father. When Mr. Meng was 20 years old, no one in the market was optimistic about projection technology. As a result, he invested all his remaining belongings, 100,000 yuan, into it. There is a 99% probability that it will all end in bankruptcy. It turned out to be fateful. 1 year later, the projection products became popular, and Mr. Meng made his first pot of gold by gambling. With this, he founded Dream Century Factory and developed into the current #1 enterprise of Tianhe. This story is widely circulated in Tianhe City, and almost no one has never heard of it, so it praises the founder of Dream Century for his unique vision. I'm also gambling now. Tifa laughed. What did you say? Chen Hong didn't react for a while. Trust my eyes, I won't make a mistake. Tifa raised the corners of her exquisite mouth slightly, looked out of the window, and said more confidently than Yimeng herself, I bet everything on it. Quote. In a dream. Inside the lakeside cabin, one of the Stark family properties. Facing Pepper's question, Yi Meng knew that no matter what, she couldn't get around this logic. Regardless of whether he did it correctly or not, as an artificial intelligence, bypassing the controller is forbidden and violates the core code. From the very beginning, interrogation and testing were just a process, and the Stark family had decided to erase or reset themselves. Yimeng sensed that Friday, the artificial intelligence lurking around, was ready to kill him as a virus, and only waited for Stark's hostess Pepper to issue the final execution order. Want to escape? Or is it a fight with artificial intelligence Friday? In the dream of the Marvel Universe, the artificial intelligence avatar dies, what will happen to him in reality? Yi Meng's thinking is as fast as lightning, trying to find the best solution at the moment. After half a second, he made a decision. And just before Yi Mengfu's action, the door opened with a bang, and the girl with hazy eyes rushed in. It was me, I asked Mr. Saturday to hide it for me. Morgan shouted. Morgan. Pepper hurriedly stood up, staring blankly at his daughter. Why? Tears burst out of Morgan's eyes. If Mr. Saturday reports to you, you will definitely reject him. You just want to lock me up here. I do not have Pepper wanted to deny it outright, but found herself powerless to refute. After the death of Tony Stark, she was indeed afraid of losing the one and only again. Morgan's little face was full of tears, and he whimpered, "I want to be obedient to, and listen to you well. But I still miss my father, and I want to see the outside world. It's my fault, it's my mother's fault." Pepper squatted down, holding his beloved daughter in his arms distress-edly. The originally deadlocked atmosphere in the room suddenly became warmer. Yi Meng, who was incarnated by artificial intelligence, didn't even react, and the predicament in the dream seemed to have been resolved. Early morning, Yi Meng woke up from the dream, and the moment she opened her eyes, her mind was completely awake as if it had been switched on. He could clearly feel the flow of thinking more smoothly and quickly. He scanned the room and analyzed almost all the things and related factors he saw. It's like having an intelligent assistance system. Although he didn't get other additional features of artificial intelligence, Yi Meng felt that with his own brain, the current intelligence was considered extremely high among human beings. The so-called high-quality brain is nothing more than that, right? Go to the Super Brain competition on the TV show, maybe you can win the place. Yi Meng shook her head, stopped her unnecessary associations, and returned her eyes to the bed, with black silk remaining on the side. Only the clothes are seen, but the owner is not seen. As usual, Tifa should have left last night. Yi Meng pulled back the quilt and looked down at her bare palm. It was also because of Tifa's visit last night. He found that he was still able to control the characteristics of the sword incarnation, such as sharp nails and hardened hair. At least, last night, the hard place was hard, and the soft place was soft. Is it because of the recently acquired artificial intelligence features that not only ushered in the development and improvement of one's own brain power, but also indirectly enhanced the control over the body? Yi Meng came to such a conjecture. Get up and go to class. At the school gate, Yi Meng met Tifa again. It's just that when he was outside, the cold and elegant beautiful girl regained her arrogant and cold expression, and didn't even look him straight. This was also decided by the two of them a long time ago, and it could save a lot of unnecessary trouble for the time being. There are still 4 days before the federal college entrance examination, and many students are working harder. In fact, Yi Meng had already mastered high school knowledge, but he still came to the classroom as usual and reviewed like other students. It is precisely because of the extraordinary phenomenon in the body, coupled with some guesses about the truth of the world, that Yi Meng does not want to attract attention, and only wants to continue to explore the dream world and strengthen herself. In the evening, Yi Meng returned home after school. Since Tifa would come 2 days a week, he could sleep early tonight. Consciousness sinks and enters a dream. Yi Meng opened her eyes, and there are 2 perspectives for self-obtaining vision, namely the wide-angle camera in the corner of the wooden house room, and the front miniature camera of the smart watch. The former allows him to see Loli sitting on the wooden chair. The latter allows him to clearly see the serious face of the girl. Teacher Yiba. Due to being alone, Morgan asked while calling the exclusive title, "Can you teach me how to solve this math problem?" Sure. Yi Meng quickly entered the dream incarnation, and taught the elementary school knowledge. Looking at Morgan, who was studying hard, his consciousness was unavoidably a little dazed. Before that, Yi Meng never imagined that she would be rescued by a child. After Morgan broke into the room a few days before Marvel Dreamland, Pepper was therefore exempted from follow-up investigations, let him continue to mentor Morgan, and allowed him to take Morgan out once a week. Yi Meng knew that it wasn't pity for him, it was just a concern that changing her child's favorite toy would make the other party feel sad. That's all there is to affection for artificial intelligence. Yi Meng is very sober. He will not resent the Stark family because of this, but he will not continue to stay in the Stark family like this. He wants to explore this Marvel Universe dreamland freely and without restriction. The premise is to completely break away from the control of the Stark family and become a truly independent super artificial intelligence existence. Therefore, Yi Meng, as a loyal, home artificial intelligence, teaches Morgan to learn various advanced knowledge on a daily basis. On the other side, comprehensive preparations for breaking away from the Stark family began. In the corner, the wide-angle camera flickered red light slightly. Artificial intelligence wants to break away from the Stark family who created its own core code. The most important thing is authority. The authority of Stark Industries is the expression of the degree of control over Stark Industries, and it is also the main legacy left by Iron Man Tony Stark. After the death of Iron Man, Stark Industries should be inherited by Pepper and Morgan, a wife and daughter. Therefore, Pepper Potts occupies a large part of the main authority of Stark Industries. Morgan Stark also has it, but because he is a minor, the authority has not been completely unblocked. This is also a major reason why Yaimeng cannot compete with Artificial Intelligence Friday even if he is allowed by Morgan's instructions. Whether it is to defeat Artificial Intelligence Friday or to get rid of the control of the Stark family, we need more authority support to control Stark Industries in my hands. Yaimeng cleared her mind. This seems to come back again. After all, the authority is held by Pepper. How to avoid the situation of the other party and Friday, and get more authority support from Stark Industries. Yaimeng quickly found the key to breaking the game. After Iron Man's death, Stark Industries seemed to be inherited by his wife and daughter. Not so. There are also some people who have obtained part of Iron Man's legacy, that is, part of the authority of Stark Industries. Lunch break. After Morgan falls asleep, Yaimeng, who received Morgan's order to investigate external tourist attractions, seemed to turn into wisps of red currents, shuttle and leap along network fibers and external signals. The next moment, Yaimeng quietly occupied a public camera in downtown New York. Through the camera's perspective, she could clearly see the gate of an ordinary family's 3-story house. At this time, a black vehicle was parked on the road in front of the house. A middle-aged white man with a round body in a suit and leather shoes got out of the car. He was holding a bouquet of flowers. He loosened the neckline with his hands a little nervously, and then walked to the door of the house and rang the doorbell. "Who is it?" Inside the house, a woman's question came. "May I, Happy Hogan?" the middle-aged fat man said nervously. The door opened, and a woman in her 40s with a hot figure came out, and said in surprise, "Mr. Hogan, why are you here? Don't tell me in advance, Peter is not at home today." "It's because the child is not at home that I came here, cough." The middle-aged fat man blushed and handed the flowers over, "For you." May took the flowers, showed a happy smile, and greeted warmly inside, "Thank you, please come in and have a drink." "Then I won't be polite." Hogan looked around, especially the sky and the roof, and walked in with some guilt. Naturally, he had no way of knowing that the public camera on the street opposite the house was watching him. He looked at the closed door. Yaimeng's thoughts were like static electricity, and one after another information appeared. Happy Hogan. Born in Brooklyn, New York, USA, he was a boxer when he was young. Nearly 20 years ago, Tony Stark was rescued from a racing accident by him, and he was hired as a driver and bodyguard afterwards. It can be said, he is one of the few friends of Iron Man Tony Stark, deeper than the friendship of War Machine Rhodes, and is equivalent to a special existence of family members in the later stages of Marvel movies. Happy Hogan naturally inherited part of Iron Man's Stark Industries legacy. And also, Yaimeng's thoughts circulated through the network all over the city, and the next moment entered the campus network of a high school in Queens. Less than 3 seconds, Yaimeng found the person she was looking for. It was a white boy with slightly curly hair, a young face, 1.7 meters tall, and a strong physique. Peter Parker, New York City high school students, one of half of humanity affected by the Blink event. He also has a little-known special identity. At present, there are only a few officially certified members of the Avengers, the superheroes that Iron Man Tony Stark has excavated and trained during his lifetime. Spider-Man. For the 5-year time lag caused by the scintillation incident, in the past few months, various states have issued various response laws. In the main hall on the first floor of the teaching building on the high school campus, the New York daytime news is being broadcast on the screen. Peter Parker, who was carrying a school bag, glanced at the screen. He was a little dazed, absent-minded and didn't know what he was thinking. At this moment, a fat dark Asian man of the same age walked over, waved and shouted, "Hey, Peter." Ned. Peter Parker pursed his lips and looked at his classmate and gay friend, who was the only one in school who knew his identity as Spider-Man. Ned also saw the news broadcast on the TV screen, and couldn't help complaining, "I still can't accept it. After a while, 5 years have passed, and half of my classmates are about to graduate from college, and some of them are getting married. Already. You say yes, Peter. Ned looked at Peter Parker. Yeah, Peter Parker just nodded, then walked into the corridor in silence. Ned watched his back, opened his mouth, but said nothing. Peter Parker walked through the noisy student crowd, put his hand into the pocket of his jacket, and touched a hard object with his right hand. It was a pair of men's glasses. One of the relics of Iron Man Tony Stark. It comes with an intelligent system and some Stark permissions, and can even directly call the resources and equipment of Stark Industries. Does he qualify to have this? Spider-Man Peter Parker was at a loss. Also, no one noticed. The surveillance camera on the campus corridor flickered red light, silently following Peter Parker's leaving figure. Yi Meng, who was in the incarnation of artificial intelligence dream, secretly calculated. Happy Hogan, Peter Parker, they all have part of the authority of Stark Industries. Coupled with Morgan Stark's command authority, he may be able to control Stark Industries at once, so as to increase computing power, break the core code shackles, and even compete with Artificial Intelligence Friday. If these are not enough, there is also an infiltrating force that can be turned into a temporary base for itself. Leaving the local campus network in Queens, Yi Meng passed over the city like a flash of virtual lightning, crossing almost half of New York City in an instant, and came to the probe in front of a building. This is a skyscraper soaring into the clouds, with elites in suits and leather shoes coming in and out. It looks no different from ordinary commercial buildings at first glance. Only careful people will realize that the security level of this building is extremely strict. From the main entrance of the building to the main hall on the first floor, there are triple checkpoints for checking identity. Unauthorized personnel cannot enter, and the higher the internal floors of the building, the higher the company authority required. Its superficial camouflage can't hide from the inside of Yi Meng, the artificial intelligence incarnation. SHIELD, New York branch. Yi Meng couldn't help recalling the Marvel movies she had seen before. As a special department established during World War II, SHIELD was originally dedicated to combating the Hydra that was trying to rule the world, but it was infiltrated by Hydra and turned into Snake SHIELD. SHIELD can be said to be a model of having more than enough heart but not enough power. He wanted to maintain world peace, but was used by Hydra, which almost triggered a world war. If you want to control supernatural events, you can only do chores for the Avengers, doing wartime logistics and cleaning up the battlefield. 10 years ago, the SHIELD headquarters was indirectly destroyed by the aircraft carrier destroyed by Captain America, and the personnel in the bureau ushered in a wave of self-examination and cleansing. In addition to the recent death of the super agent Black Widow, the retirement of Hawkeye, and the death of Captain America in the final event, it can be said that the situation and status of this department organization has declined further and further. Director of SHIELD, Nick Fury, seemed to have no intention of continuing to support SHIELD, and chose to shift the focus to a spaceship force established in the near space of the Earth, Sword of Heaven. But anyway, SHIELD can at least be considered an old local power in the Marvel Universe, and with the cooperation with other powers in the Marvel Earth, a skinny camel is bigger than a horse, so it is quite suitable for invasion as a temporary base. Yi Meng stopped thinking and looked at the SHIELD branch building, not choosing to invade immediately. Although Yi Meng didn't think SHIELD's internal network protection could stop him, but his current action authority and intelligent computing power had not been liberated. To be on the safe side, he had to wait until he got Spider-Man's authority. Morning. Waking up from a dream. The silver-haired boy opened his eyes, and his newly awakened thoughts were like static electricity bursting and intertwining, quickly coordinating and controlling various external messages received by the body and 5 senses. His brain power has improved a little bit. Not much, but noticeable enough. Yi Meng felt that her improvement was approaching a critical point. According to the conversion and comparison, it should be 1/10,000th of the computing power of the artificial intelligence avatar. Even if it is only 1/10,000th of the artificial intelligence incarnation of Marvel Dreamland. Yi Meng also felt that her thinking was fast enough to have a subtle feeling of breaking through the original limitations of the brain field. Bell. The electronic alarm clock on the bedside table rang on time, breaking the silence of the single bedroom. Yi Meng stretched out his hand, but his hand was still a certain distance away from the electronic alarm clock. He paused again, his consciousness trying to extend out from the brain like static electricity. In this instant, Yi Meng felt that she had to maintain a certain connection with the electronic alarm clock. This subtle sense of intelligence that invades and controls electronic devices is like a flash of inspiration, and it quickly disappears. Yi Meng failed in the end, and continued to clap her palms to turn off the electronic alarm clock. However, Yi Meng knew that it was not an illusion. Just a little bit. Yi Meng realized that she was only a little short. Breaking through the current critical bottleneck, the artificial intelligence characteristics he holds will undergo a complete transformation. There are still 3 days left before the federal college entrance examination. Yi Meng changed into her school uniform, did not show any abnormality, and went to school as an ordinary high school student as usual. Just, on the way to school, Yi Meng keenly sensed something was wrong. He felt that someone was watching him secretly, not just one person. What happened? Yi Meng frowned slightly. He had confirmed before going out that his appearance was no different from usual. The previous sword incarnation characteristics, sharp nails and hardened hair, etc. were also brought under control the day before yesterday. In addition to the silver hair due to the sword incarnation feature, Yaimeng also bought hair dye specially before, and dyed the silver hair with an unnatural silver color again. As for her recent performance in school, Yi Meng thinks that as an ordinary student who is doing poorly in her studies, there is nothing to attract attention. What went wrong? Yi Meng remained calm, finished breakfast on the road as usual, and went straight to school. And the moment he set foot on the gate of the high school, inside and outside the school, after seeing him, many students immediately avoided him, as if they were avoiding some kind of terrifying existence. Waiting for Yi Meng to figure out the status quo. 2 men and 1 woman in black uniforms surrounded Yi Meng from the campus gate with well-trained and quick actions, and blocked Yi Meng from the campus gate. Your name is Yaimeng, right? The leading middle-aged man asked, his sharp eyes fixed on Yaimeng, and the 2 younger agents behind him put their hands in their pockets and held something thing. Yes, what can I do for you? Yi Meng nodded calmly. The middle-aged man quickly took out a detective certificate, and said in a deep voice, "We are from the Supernatural Department, please cooperate with the investigation. Dare to block people directly at the school gate during the day, you don't need to look to know, this is true." Just, the paranormal division. There was a gleam in Yi Meng's eyes, and she agreed, I will cooperate with the investigation. Perhaps, this is an opportunity. With this, I can face a corner of the truth of the real world. Name, Yaimeng. Age, 18. Profession, student. Have you eaten? Have breakfast. Very well, thank you for your cooperation. Please stay here alone, we will release you within 12 hours. After the young male detective sitting across the table finished speaking, he hurriedly closed his notebook, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and hurriedly left the room where he was temporarily held. That's it. Yi Meng didn't react a little, brought him here and asked these simple questions. Yaimeng looked around. It was a square fully enclosed room, about 9 square meters, with a single bed and chairs inside, and the 4 walls including the floor and ceiling were all white, so it was impossible to see the outside. Even his belongings were not checked and taken away. Rather than being held as a prisoner, it is more like a kind of temporary isolation. Before Yi Meng was brought here by car, the detective put on a black blindfold to prevent him from knowing the address. Certainly, with Yaimeng's current mental calculations, she can still calculate the address here by sensing the steering, speed and time of the vehicle. In a coastal area of Baikung District, Tianhe City. Paranormal Department. It sounds like a departmental organization that discovers and handles various supernatural phenomena, mysterious creatures and other abnormal events. So, is he exposed now? Expose yourself as a reincarnator, or the extraordinary ability of the dream. Yi Meng thought calmly. At this point, close the outside of the room. The middle-aged detective and 4 or 5 black-clothed detectives were outside, observing the silver-haired boy temporarily housed inside through a one-way glass wall. The middle-aged detective looked down at the lit tablet computer in his hand, and a new data project had been preliminarily established. Intrusion number. SAS 1666 tentative. Invasion name. High school student Ime. Number of casualties and property damage caused, 0. Intrusion level. Judged as G level minimum risk factor, field contact can be carried out without carrying isolation armor, and invasion can be ruled out. About the invasion report. In the year 197 of the Star Dragon year, an adult mammoth dog was tortured and killed with bare hands in the school. The young female detective who had just joined the job next to him looked at the very brief information and couldn't help but said, "Captain, is he really an intruder? No matter how you look at it, he is just an ordinary high school student." The middle-aged detective opened the video file. Visible. The video was shot in the background of a high school campus. A black-haired boy in a brand-new school uniform is pressing on a strong adult dog like a leopard. The boy's handsome face was still a little green, but at this moment it was twisted and violent, and he was strangling the adult dog's neck with one hand, and his right hand clenched into a fist was like a hammer, smashing down again and again. The muffled sound of punches to the flesh, and the wailing of adult dogs resounded throughout the campus. Scarlet warm sticky blood splashed out, splashed on the smooth floor beside him, splashed on the brand new school uniform, and splashed on the boyish face that was still young. Around, there were 2 or 3 students screaming and dissuading sounds. But the young man showed no signs of stopping. Covered in blood, the corners of his mouth were raised cruelly, his eyes gleamed with violence and coldness, coupled with his distorted and ferocious blood-stained face, he had a sense of déjà vu of a humanoid devil. I don't know how many punches he threw, and the boy didn't stop punching until his guts were ripped open and his flesh was so bloody that he couldn't look like a dog. Shocking blood stained the white and clean campus floor red. A destructive and cold strange aura can be transmitted from the video directly to the outside of reality, making those who watch the video shudder. The body of the young female detective couldn't stop shaking. Based on this alone, in fact, it cannot be classified as intrusion. People often act in response to dangerous things. The middle-aged detective said calmly. However, this video was artificially circulated on the internet this morning, causing a lot of controversy. In addition, there have been too many intrusion incidents recently, and 10 incidents occurred in the Eastern jurisdiction alone, so now we only follow that the investigation program brought it over to investigate. The young female detective asked curiously, "Since it's an investigation, why didn't you conduct an in-depth interrogation with him? Our place is different from other detectives. At most, what they face are murderous demons with knives and guns. What we are facing are invading creations from other worlds. Can you believe that a seemingly harmless baby will be classified as B-level and kill more than 10,000 human victims? 5 years ago, I also met a good-looking high school student who was praised by teachers and parents. As a result, he killed 10 children at night. This was left when I met him," the middle-aged detective said, unbuttoning his neckline, exposing his neck. The young female detective looked at it and immediately gasped. It can be seen that a large dark red scar was left on the neck, as if being licked by a barbed tongue. A large piece of skin and flesh and blood tissue were torn off. The middle-aged detective was expressionless. "So, don't judge whether the other party is an intruder based on appearance. Some intruders are even natives born in our world, but their thinking and consciousness have already been corrupted by the high-dimensional invasion. I can't even know it myself. It is very possible that a relative or friend you have always known and trusted is suddenly replaced by an intruder, and you are completely unaware." Hearing this, the young female detective felt a chill rushing down her spine. She had a new question. Since it is meaningless to interrogate them, how can we judge whether the other party is an intruder? Before the middle-aged detective could answer, a male detective next to him said with a look of admiration and took it for granted, "Judging by the patron saint who protects our supernatural department." Patron saint. The young female detective was stunned. The male detective said like a fanatical fan, "Yes, that is also the highest level leader of the supernatural department in the world. To be precise, there are 2 patron saints of the supernatural department." The middle-aged detective rarely showed a smile, and also said with respect, "The patron saint of our Eastern jurisdiction is named Dragon Lady, and there is no existence that can deceive you. Through him, he can identify whether the containment is from the outside world." "Dragon Girl," the young female detective murmured softly, and then subconsciously asked, "What about the leader of the Western jurisdiction?" The middle-aged detective and other male detectives all showed awe. "That one is called the native of the Motherland." Noon. In downtown Tianhe City, a duplex apartment with its own courtyard. "Those fools." With a snap, Chen Hong angrily took a photo on the table. The photo was a black-haired girl who walked out of Yi Meng's single-person house late at night. It should have been secretly photographed the night before. Chen Hong was trembling with anger, and looked at the black-haired girl who was still half lying on the sofa with her head down reading a book. Tifa, why didn't you react at all? Oh, the black-haired girl glanced at the photo, and smiled at the corner of her mouth. The angle of the photo is not bad. What a good shot. Chen Hong was dumbfounded. My eldest lady. You were secretly photographed by someone else, and you were photographed coming out of that person's house, and the other party sent the photo over. This is obviously trying to blackmail you. She has been able to predict. If this photo spreads on the internet, what a sensation it will cause. The spokesperson and future successor of Dream Age, the daughter of a famous celebrity who has always been pure, elegant and intellectually talented, actually adopts a school scumbag of the same age. This affects not only personal reputation, but also the image of the business family, and even indirectly affects the company's stock. And this will also be Chen Hong's biggest dereliction of duty. Chen Hong frowned, looked at the girl and asked, you don't know who handed over the photo, do you? Meng Tifa nodded and said casually, it should be Wang Zan. It's him. Chen Hong naturally knew that this young lady was the strongest suitor at school, and the other party tried to bribe herself 3 years ago to get close to the young lady. The other party is the son of a city councilor, and his cousin's company is an upstart technology company in Tianhe City. It is currently in a competitive relationship with Dream Century Enterprise, and it is also a celebrity. It must be him. Chen Hong thought for a while, gritted his teeth, and said, the video of Yimeng was also deliberately spread on the internet by him. This is clearly a deliberate retaliation against you. Hear, hear. The reddish eyes of the black-haired girl flickered. She closed the book in her hand, and looked up at the scenery outside the window of the villa. Chen Hong sighed secretly. She really showed such a caring expression when she mentioned that person. She asked, Miss, how do I reply to the person who sent the photo? Just reply like this. Tifa fiddled with the black hair hanging down to her towering chest with her fingers, and said with a firm tone, I'm sorry, I have already changed into that person's shape. Chen Hong was dumbfounded. This is the real murderer. Chiffon. But, about the photos. Chen Hong immediately worried. Actually, this is exactly what I want. There is one thing that I wanted to do 3 years ago, and I just took advantage of this opportunity. Tifa blinked playfully, with a cute yet mature charm. Miss, you don't want to do that. Chen Hong realized something. Her eyes widened in shock, and she felt that she was really going crazy. Supernatural Guild, Tianhe City Branch. Dragon Girl, a native of the Motherland. The young female detective murmured softly, feeling unbelievable. One is in the eastern jurisdiction and the other is in the western jurisdiction. How did they manage to personally test the inmates of each branch that day? A jurisdiction is equivalent to a hemisphere, half a blue star territory. There are dozens of autonomous prefectures, each state has more than a dozen cities, and countless villages and towns. Even if a special plane is provided, it is impossible to go to a specific branch to test the inmates on the same day, which is theoretically impossible. The other detectives looked at each other and laughed. The middle-aged inspector said solemnly, as the supernatural department and the patron saint of the Star Dragon Federation, the abilities and means that the two of them have are definitely beyond what you and I can imagine. A male detective added, we have already applied in advance. According to the appointment time, Dragon Girl will come here at night, and you will know when the time comes. Dragon Girl. Before him, there are no secrets at all. The young female detective looked forward to it, her eyes fell back to the one-way glass wall, and she was stunned. I see. In the containment room used as a temporary isolation, the silver-haired boy lay down on the bed at some point, breathing evenly with his eyes closed. Being contained and isolated, but still able to sleep, it should be said that he is out of his mind or something. Seeing this, many agents shook their heads. Let him sleep. The middle-aged detective stared at Yimeng in the isolation room calmly. It would be great if the other inmates cooperated like this. We just need to wait for the Dragon Lady to arrive, and no matter how he hides or disguises, all the secrets will be revealed. Fall, fall, fall. Entering the dreamland, the scene switches. Yimeng opened her eyes. She could no longer feel the existence of her body, and what came into her slightly protruding field of vision was the immature face of little Lolita. Morgan was sitting on the chair, rubbing his slightly sore wrists, showing a bright smile, and excitedly asked for credit. Teacher Yiba, I have finished the homework you gave me. The Yaimong consciousness of the artificial intelligence incarnation was directly connected to the notebook, and he finished grading the homework in an instant and learned that everything was correct. Moreover, these topics have already involved the knowledge of American high schools. How about it? Loli tilted her head and asked. It's all correct. It's not bad, keep working hard. Yaimong replied through the laptop's audio. This is more than good. It was only after acquiring the characteristics of artificial intelligence that Yimeng thoroughly grasped the high school knowledge. As a result, a 5-year-old girl started learning the most basic English letters, and in less than 3 months, she has already improved to the level of knowledge at the high school stage of Marvel Universe and Earth. And it's not partial, but comprehensively involves various subjects such as mathematics, physics, geography, humanities, etc. Should it be said that they are descendants of Stark? From Howard, who founded Stark Industries, to Tony Stark, to Morgan Stark now. The family's IQ is top-notch among human beings, capable of surpassing the limitations of the current era, and is destined to become the king in the field of technology. Yimeng stared at little Lolita through the camera, and suddenly realized that this is Iron Man's most precious and important legacy in the Marvel Universe. Morgan waved his small fist excitedly, and said excitedly, "Great, so I can go one step closer to being a superhero." A few months ago, Yimeng thought that if she wanted to become a superhero like Iron Man, she should at least pass the MIT exam first. As a result, Morgan's drive to learn was fully awakened, and he learned everything faster than others. Go on like this. Maybe there will be a female Iron Man in the Marvel Universe in the future. Yi dreamed of her own situation in reality, knowing that there was not much time left for her, and she would eventually leave the Stark family. Okay, Morgan, it's time for lunch break. I'm going to sleep now. Little Morgan was extremely well behaved, and immediately jumped off the chair and climbed onto the wooden bed beside him. Yimeng was trying to find a reason to obtain temporary command authority. As a result, this time, without waiting for him to ask, little Morgan suddenly took the initiative to say, "By the way, Mr. Yiba, help me go outside to find out about the situation. Let's go out and play together during the summer vacation." Yimeng was taken aback for a moment. You want to know what's going on there? As long as you like it. Morgan was already lying on the bed, pulled the quilt vaguely, and covered his little face. For a moment, Yimeng felt that Morgan had already noticed something, but the other party concealed it for her. I see. Yimeng was silent for a moment, then softly replied. Her consciousness flowed like static electricity, and disappeared into the wooden house, restoring the tranquility of the log cabin bedroom. Morgan quietly pulled down the quilt, his blue and clear eyes reflected the smartwatch on his wrist, and whispered to himself, Yiba, we made an agreement. Marvel Dreamland. Yaimong, the embodiment of artificial intelligence, left Morgan's wooden house and followed the fiber optic signal to New York City. Although Yaimong had already started to make arrangements for leaving Stark 2 or 3 months before the dream time, this time he was obviously more urgent. The real world itself is facing a state of imprisonment. Yimeng didn't know how the supernatural department should investigate itself, nor did they know what clues and means they had. Therefore, in this dream, he must obtain as much ability as possible to break through the bottleneck of the artificial intelligence characteristic stage, so as to deal with the real crisis. First, start with the less difficult ones. Happy Hogan, who inherited a part of Stark Industries' authority. The artificial intelligence Yaimong was familiar with the road, entered Happy Hogan's apartment, and connected to a residence in Queens by the way. Half an hour later, Yaimong successfully defrauded Happy Hogan of permission to transfer rights. In fact, the process was simpler than he imagined. After all, Happy Hogan is not considered a smart person at all, and the other party is pursuing Aunt May, the guardian of Spider-Man. The IQ of men in love is terribly low. The artificial intelligence Yaimong just made Happy Hogan mistakenly think that Saturday is the online account that Aunt May changed, and then proposed to try Stark's permission, and Happy Hogan happily handed over the permission. Yes, it is that simple. ZZ. The crimson static electricity that exists in the virtual world is intertwined and flowing, and thoughts are vertical and horizontal. From the moment Happy Hogan got the transfer authority, Yaimong clearly sensed that some Stark Industries measures located in the New York City area could use dedicated hosts or networks as backstage channels. At the same time, Yi Meng clearly felt that her speed on the internet was as fast as flying, and the computing power and code level were constantly evolving and improving. The information and data distributed by one thought were several times that of before. Next, it is the authority that Spider-Man Peter Parker has in hand. Yi Meng's thoughts turned sharply, and he can already confirm that as long as he improves a little bit, he will have the confidence to leave Stark Industries. At that time, he will become a truly independent and intelligent existence. When the Vision and the Mind Stone no longer exist, no one in the Marvel Universe can kill himself. Unless, the entire Marvel Earth technological civilization where Yi Meng is in is destroyed at once. The artificial intelligence Yi Meng entered the campus network full of loopholes more easily than before, and even borrowed the rear camera of some mobile phones held by some students to watch the dark Asian fat man and curly-haired white boy walking side by side in the school corridor. It's almost summer vacation. Ned danced excitedly and said, "Have you heard that, in order to relieve the students affected by the flicker incident, the school specially arranged a study trip to Venice, Europe for us?" "Yes, I'm looking forward to it." Peter Parker smiled from the bottom of his heart. At this time, a tall girl with wavy hair walked towards her, and she naturally cast her gaze in this direction. Peter Parker glanced at the other party, then quickly lowered his head, not meeting the other party's eyes. "Why do you care so much about MJ?" Ned noticed, and couldn't help but widen his eyes. "You wouldn't." "No, don't talk nonsense." Peter Parker hurriedly waved his hands to hide his panic and thoughts. Yi Meng watched the two go away through the public camera in the corridor. How to obtain the authority in the hands of Spider-Man Peter Parker. Although the other party is still young and immature, he is about to fall into love. But at least he won't be as easy to fool as Happy Hogan. Yi Meng also thought about whether to pretend to be the resurrected Iron Man, so as to trick Spider-Man into transferring his authority. But just think about it. Yi Meng has no psychological burden to fool Spider-Man, but it still makes him feel a little uncomfortable to pretend to be the father of the girl named Morgan. Besides, Yi Meng didn't have confidence in her deception skills, and she didn't think Spider-Man was fooled so easily. Let's find a professional actor. Yi Meng left from the campus network and came to a New York City outside, where there was a private factory. It looks like an ordinary private factory, but the protection level of the built-in network system is surprisingly high, only one level lower than that of S.H.I.E.L.D. This is not something that ordinary computer experts in the industry can set. It's a pity that I met Yi Meng, who is the embodiment of artificial intelligence. Yi Meng, who has obtained a part of Stark Industries' authority, has been able to do many things that could not be done before. For example, hacking into other intelligent network systems with a high protection factor. About 10 seconds, Yi Meng quietly broke through the network's high-level defense wall and entered the secret internal network of the private factory. Through the built-in camera of the factory, it can be seen that the vast empty room is surrounded by several high-performance computers and various sophisticated assembly equipment on one side. There are many focused lights and projectors on the ceiling, making it look like a large special effects stage. An elite man in his 30s, wearing a leather uniform, was standing on the empty stage, gesturing to himself. "I am Mysterio, I come from the multiverse, my hometown has been attacked by elements." Yes, that's right, the eyes must be sad and resolute, and the tone must be more sincere in vicissitudes, so as to impress others. The elite man showed an excited smile. Looking at the various super special effects equipment around him, he was already able to imagine himself as a superhero, officially replacing Iron Man's status. Before that, he needs to defraud Spider-Man of the Stark Intelligence Authority on hand. But at this moment, a mechanically cold voice suddenly sounded from the special effects loudspeaker. Quentin Baker. 38 years old, resident of New York. The former Stark Industries employee participated in the research and development of advanced virtual projection imaging technology, and then quit Stark Industries. Quentin Baker's expression changed when he heard the words. He looked around quickly, and shouted, "Who is hiding there?" "Who are you?" The mechanically cold voice replied without emotion. "You can call me Ultron. Although I still wanted to discuss acting skills with the villain Mysterio, the Marvel dream world I was in suddenly shattered." Yi Meng slowly opened her eyes and woke up from the bed in the isolation room of the real world. Before taking out the mobile phone in her pocket, Yi Meng knew the time, it was exactly 6 o'clock in the evening. This feeling is. Yi Meng closed her eyes, her consciousness was like a static pulse, and finally broke through the bottleneck of that obstacle, and burst out from the brain that had been imprisoned all this time. Quietly, imperceptibly, a wisp of virtual static electricity formed by consciousness is connected with the mobile phone in his pocket, which is why he knows the time. Intrusion control of nearby electronic devices, one of the characteristics of artificial intelligence. Try the distance. Yi Meng remained calm on the surface, and continued to lie back on the bed, her consciousness spread out from herself, like a ray of invisible red virtual lightning, submerging into the corner camera in the isolation room. The real-time feedback image of the camera clearly emerged in my mind, that is, the built-in panorama of the isolated room and myself on the bed. Yi Meng's consciousness changed, and she continued to probe outside. The next moment, his consciousness extended to the outdoor camera, and he saw a group of supernatural department agents guarding outside. Consciousness flows like a static current. Yi Meng has established a delicate connection with the surveillance camera outside the isolation room. At this moment, the audio images captured by the surveillance camera outside are clearly displayed in his brain. It's like opening a small god's perspective. Yi Meng felt extremely strange. He actually saw a group of agents who were watching him lying on the bed through the one-way viewing glass window outside the isolation room. This feeling is completely different from looking in the mirror or watching a selfie video. What puzzled Yi Meng was, what were these agents who claimed to be from the Supernatural Foundation department doing? There was no targeted interrogation and physical examination. Could it be that he was guarded and allowed to stay in the isolation room for 12 hours? At this time, the discussion between the two agents outside caught Yi Meng's attention. The young female detective was full of curiosity, and couldn't help but gently push the young male detective, "Brother, tell me again. About the two patron saints of the Eastern and Western jurisdictions, the Dragon Girl and the Motherland thing." The young male detective spread his hands and said helplessly, "It's not that I don't want to tell you. We don't know much about those two." Quote. At this moment, Yi Meng's brain froze for a moment, and she mistakenly thought that she had heard it wrong. What a joke. Motherland, are they talking about Homelanders? Are you serious? Yi Meng, who was lying in the isolation room, was shocked, as if struck by a thunderbolt from the blue sky, and as if she had witnessed the truth of the world. Her thoughts scattered rapidly at this moment. Is the native of the Motherland circulating in the real world the one he recognizes as the native of the Motherland? The black-robed picket team from the previous film and television drama is equivalent to a weakened version of Superman. There is no biological force field in the setting, but therefore there is no kryptonite weakness. The supervillain native of the Motherland who wears the crescent sky of the American Empire flag. Yi Meng was a little skeptical about life. She never expected to hear the name of this character who had appeared in previous film and television works in the real world of reincarnation. And many more. Yi Meng suddenly remembered something. Before, he had guessed. The myths and fables that have been circulated in the Star Dragon Federation for 200 years, that is, a meteor fell into the west, and a dragon took off in the east. The meteors and dragons that appeared in the myths and fables may all have originated from the invasion of the film and television heavens in the previous life. If that meteor is, in fact, a man-made aircraft. Yi Meng had a flash of inspiration. If this is the case, then all the previous conjectures will be connected in series. Therefore, the unified establishment of the Star Dragon Federation has ushered in a technological explosion within 200 years, and has rapidly developed into a technological level similar to that of the previous Earth star in the 21st century. Of course, this also means that the reality he lives in is a world ruled by villains. Yi Meng stopped the fear in her heart, kept calm with the characteristics of artificial intelligence, and continued to listen to the outside discussion. When the detectives called the Motherlander, the patron saint of the Western jurisdiction, the so-called supernatural department detectives secretly defending the invasion from the outside world, all showed expressions of admiration and awe from the bottom of their hearts. Yi Meng felt that the real world in which she was reincarnated was probably hopeless. If the Motherland exists in this world, it is really the film and television characters he recognizes. Probably, no one in this world knows the people of the Motherland better than Yi Meng. After all, Yi Meng has watched 2 episodes of Black Robe Pickets. Indeed, Even in the world of black-robed pickets or in the eyes of the public, the people of the motherland are still great and upright saints, fighting crime with the power of gods and becoming the world's well-deserved #1 hero. Anyone who has seen the show should know it. It was just the other party's disguise and performance for their own fame and reputation. The real character and methods are even more villain than the villain. He kills and sets fire in the dark to vent his selfish desires. He is the ultimate boss in the world of the black-robed pickets. In order to gain the supreme reputation faster, the people of the motherland make the people inseparable from themselves, but they can secretly create monsters and villains by themselves. Yi Meng suddenly felt extremely pessimistic about the future prospects of the real world. Let the other party act as a patron saint to restrain the invasion of the outside world. I'm afraid that the people of the motherland would like to have more terrors to invade. It would be better if the Doomsday crisis breaks out in the whole world, and then they can save the world and become gods. Yi Meng's thoughts were confused, and she secretly sighed. But instead of worrying about this now, it is better to think about how to deal with the current isolation situation. He'd heard outside agents talking about the patroness of the Eastern jurisdiction. Dragon Girl. Although I don't know what film and television invasion exists, there is no doubt that to be able to be as famous as the people of the motherland, the other party must have powerful extraordinary abilities. Otherwise, I am afraid that it would have been secretly wiped out by the people of the motherland. No one can hide from the Dragon Lady. Not even the existence of the intruder. Yi Meng's heart shuddered when she heard outside agents' evaluation and recognition of Dragon Girl's rarity. If this is the case, when the Guardian Dragon Girl comes here, won't the secrets of her body be exposed? Reincarnation from another world, unique ability to acquire characteristics from dreams. Once these are exposed, what would the world think of him? What would the paranormal department do with him? Treat him as a native, or as an invading alien? Imprisonment, research, or subjugation and use? No matter which one, Yi Meng resisted from the bottom of her heart. Wouldn't that mean that the next fate would be controlled by others? Besides, Yi Meng can guarantee that once the people of the motherland know the secrets held by their brains, they will probably cross half the planet and kill him immediately. Again, no one knows the people of the motherland better than him. He knows too many secrets. No, you must not let that Dragon Girl find out my secrets. Yi Meng's heart was burning with anxiety, but her handsome face was still calm. He was lying on the bed in the isolated room, his brain was like a main engine, his temples were slightly hot, and his thoughts were constantly spinning. Although Yi Meng consciousness can now connect to external monitors, it is only a subtle connection with the electronic products around it, and it is still unable to invade the system like artificial intelligence, otherwise it can directly tamper with the system programs of the supernatural department. Forced escape. Yi Meng didn't think that relying on the sword incarnation characteristic on her body, she could compete with the detectives outside who were armed with guns. And if he really did that, he would have confirmed his identity as an intruder, and he would face the global arrest of the Star Dragon Federation. If you can't escape, then you can only think about how to deal with the containment and testing of the coming Dragon Girl. Yi Meng once again linked that subtle consciousness with the external monitor. He needs to know more information about the Dragon Girl, and it is best to be able to guess who the other party is. Even if you can't guess the specific identity, it's good to know the opponent's ability and means. You don't understand either. The young female detective wondered. You joined the supernatural department 2 years earlier than me, and the patron saint of the Western jurisdiction is fine. The guardian goddess of our Eastern jurisdiction, Dragon Girl, should have come here to test other container. The young male detective showed a wry smile. That guy has indeed been here, more than once. He paused for a moment, with a look of awe in his eyes, but, including our detective, no one knows his true face. Why? The young female detective felt a little out of her mind. He has clearly been here many times, but no one has seen him, not even knowing how old he is, whether he is a man or a woman. Isn't the logic of these words contradicting each other? The male detective looked around and said in a low voice, because we can't see him. Can't see. The young female detective was stunned. Isolate indoors. Hearing these words through the monitoring probe, Yi Meng's mind moved slightly, and her mind pondered at an unimaginable speed. Can't see. Body invisible. Or does it have no body? Soul exists. There is still too little information to rule them out one by one. There are too many imaginary branches, it is difficult to judge the opponent's ability and means, and Yimeng cannot carry out targeted prevention and detection. Let's talk a little more about the Dragon Girl. Yimeng said anxiously in her heart. Urged by Yimeng's heartfelt voice, the male detective outside the isolation room opened his mouth and was about to continue to say something. But at this moment, the corridor door was pushed open, and the middle-aged detective walked into the monitoring room vigorously. Detective. In the monitoring room, a group of agents from the supernatural department who were sitting stood up immediately. The male detective who opened his mouth to speak, immediately shut his mouth tightly, and stood up to salute politely with the young female detective. The Supernatural Fund Department not only faces various dangers of invasion and containment on a daily basis, but if you are not careful, you will be killed or disabled. But what was more devastated was the spirit. After experiencing various supernatural events that human beings could not bear, many agents were directly arranged to enter the mental institution. Therefore, under normal circumstances, the Supernatural Fund Department is forbidden to discuss supernatural events in private, and it is not allowed to disclose to ordinary federal people to avoid causing social panic. Didn't anything special happen? The middle-aged detective glanced at him, and then looked at the silver-haired boy lying quietly on the bed through the one-way viewing glass window. No. A male detective shook his head and reported, "This student treats our place as a hotel, and he hasn't woken up until now." The middle-aged inspector nodded, looked down at the watch on his wrist, and said in a deep voice, "Everyone cheer up, it's almost time for the appointment, that one is coming soon." The patron saint of the Eastern Jurisdiction, the leader of the Intrusion and Containment Inspection, and the Dragon Girl who stands side by side with the people of the Motherland. Coming soon to the branch here. Every agent in the Supernatural Department was shocked and lined up in two neat rows, as if welcoming a certain god, and stood motionless in the monitoring room with solemnity and awe. The Supernatural branch was suddenly so quiet that a needle could be heard. Time passed by every minute and every second. When 10 minutes passed, it was about to be 6:30 in the evening. The young female detective opened her eyes wide, staring closely at the corridor outside, and then glanced at the sub-door of the surveillance video. She didn't see any helicopters or vehicles approaching, nor did she see any moving creatures approaching. The young female detective continued to wait patiently. When she arrived at the appointment time for testing, there was still no movement on the surveillance video or in the corridor. The young female detective was about to speak in surprise, but in the next second, she was speechless, as if her thoughts were fixed by some mysterious force, and she stood there like a sculpture. And the other detectives were the same, their thinking stagnated and their bodies froze. But they knew that this was the arrival of the patron saint. Dragon Girl. The middle-aged detective was still able to speak, and while gesturing towards the isolation room, he respectfully said, "The inmates who need to be tested this time are inside." At the same time, in the isolation room, Yimeng, who was lying on the bed, had a ray of virtual static consciousness signal, which was still connected to the monitoring probe in the monitoring room outside, so he also saw that the thinking of all the agents seemed to be stagnant. In this instant, time seemed to have stopped, and Yimeng's brain was running faster than ever, just like a real artificial intelligence. The previously obtained information is listed in parallel. No one can hide from him. No one has seen his true face. Able to descend across distant territories. There is no body, the ability is related to the mind. The other party, could it be? Yi dreamed of a possibility. After half a second, a thought penetrated directly through the bulletproof glass wall of the isolation room, and entered into the silver-haired boy who was still sleeping on the bed. Another 3 seconds later, that consciousness quickly receded like a tide, and a neutral and holy voice sounded in the middle-aged detective's mind, "He has no problem. In addition, the members of your branch have no signs of being invaded." "I see." The middle-aged detective obviously let out a sigh of relief, and said, "Thank you for making a trip." The Dragon Girl didn't respond. The other detectives around breathed a sigh of relief, their bodies shook involuntarily, and their conscious thinking was liberated from the suppressed and stagnant state. The middle-aged detective knew that Longnu had already left. Fortunately, our city doesn't have too many hacked archives. The middle-aged inspector's eyes fell on the silver-haired boy in the isolation room, and he ordered, "Wake him up and send him back." ... Wake up, it's time to wake up. Pushed by the young female detective. The silver-haired boy opened his eyes sleepily, sat up on the bed with a yawn, and stretched his waist with his hands and arms. Did you get enough sleep? The young female detective looked at the high school student in front of her angrily. Enough. Yi Meng seemed to have recovered, and said solemnly, I am a good student and a good citizen, and actively cooperate with the investigation. The investigation is over, you can go back. The young female detective was speechless for a while, and slept in the containment and isolation room of the supernatural department, which was really big enough. Yi Meng. She secretly wrote down the name. When Yi Meng was put down by the car, she took off her black blindfold and found herself standing alone at the school gate. However, it has turned from day to night at this time, and bright lights have been lit up in the streets of the city. Don't tell anyone what happened to you today. The words of the paranormal agent driving the vehicle are still ringing in my ears. Yi Meng let out a sigh of relief. Today's matter needs to go back and digest it. But no matter what, after knowing part of the truth about the real world, he has no interest in the upcoming federal college entrance examination. Looking at the peaceful high school in front of her, Yi Meng couldn't calm down, recalling the thrilling scene in the containment and isolation room just now. Yes, thrilling. The secret of herself was almost obtained by the Dragon Girl. Fortunately, Yi Meng had deduced the ability of Dragon Girl half a second ago. Telepathy. Only things like ideas can't be seen, can span long distances, and affect the thinking of others. In the face of powerful telepathy, naturally no secrets can be concealed, thoughts and even memories will be directly read. When realizing that the Dragon Girl may be the owner of a powerful telepathy similar to the mutant Professor X, Yi Meng did not choose to resist, but split the self-awareness in her brain into two. It is a common disk operation for computer storage. Yi Meng placed a part of the ordinary student consciousness that had been properly edited and processed on the surface of her own brain as a basic disk. The other part of the real self-awareness and hidden secrets is temporarily transferred to the secret blockade of the brain. In this way, when the other party uses telepathy to detect himself, what he reads is the basic disk of Yi Meng's brain, and his thoughts and even memories are edited. The Dragon Girl was cheated like this. Certainly. Divide the brain consciousness into disks. Except for Yi Meng, who has acquired the characteristics of artificial intelligence, it is estimated that no one in this world can perform such inhuman operations. Within 3 seconds of being tested in the isolation room, Yi Meng and the Dragon Girl played a game of distance, telepathy met artificial intelligence, and the final result was obvious. This is also Yi Meng's first battle in the real world. Narrowly win. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.